Good morning and welcome to the Mike Graham Show. Slightly later than advertised. Look at that, 7:01 and 47 seconds. Apologies for that. We were just having a conversation about James Bond, which is of no relevance really whatsoever to the show. But anyway, here we are. What is it? The Tuesday, the 7th of April. Easter weekend has come and gone. There is some incredible stuff to talk about this morning. And Russell Quirk is here to help us. Russell, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Welcome to the home of common sense, which I'm delighted to say I can now announce has pushed through 150,000 subscribers overnight. 14 million views now as well.
Wow.
So we're really starting to hit the ground running. And so thanks to all of you for subscribing. Please do continue to encourage other people to subscribe, though, because we have got incredible numbers of views and we've got incredible numbers listening to the show and watching the show every single day. But quite a lot of you are not actually subscribing to the YouTube channel. It doesn't cost any money. It's completely free. And all it does is it pushes us further into this sort of stratosphere so that we get to more places where other shows don't reach, if you know what I mean. We've got Kinsey Schofield coming on a little while to talk about the whole situation with Harry and Meghan and their kids, but also Donald Trump, who's on the front page of the papers this morning. And it has to be said, I think the Sun have actually reproduced it best because they've done it really, really, really big. And it's Donald Trump and the Easter Bunny, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, that is possibly one of the greatest pictures of all time. I don't know if you watched it yesterday afternoon, Russell, but he's actually standing at the White House in the Rose Garden before he was doing a sort of Easter egg giveaway with kids, basically warning Iran that he was going to destroy them. And to his immediate left is the Easter Bunny with his big ears coming up. It's fantastic.
It's quite the spectacle, isn't it?
It really is. I don't think anyone's ever seen anything like it.
I don't know, what's he going to do at Christmas with Santa standing next to him?
I mean, that's the funny thing. The Easter Bunny, though, for some reason, is always in the White House at Easter. I mean, whereas Santa, I think, isn't always there. I mean, I think it's almost as though, because it's almost as though Easter and like Thanksgiving in America are the two biggest kind of holidays, really. And Christmas is a kind of an also-ran.
Well, unlike here, of course, where it seems that our royal family in particular struggled with the concept of Easter this year.
They do. Yeah, there was no statement. And all the lefties were going, well, the Queen only made one statement. Actually, not true. We had a fantastic sermon from Bishop Dewar at the weekend, which did incredibly well. People loved it. And he was saying, actually, the Queen made 4 Easter addresses during the time that she was the monarch. And and also the fact is that the Queen didn't say all sorts of other things like Happy Eid Mubarak and Happy Ramadan, right? So if you didn't do Easter, it's not such a big deal. Whereas Charles is constantly telling us to have a Happy Ramadan and a Happy Eid, and he now doesn't want to do Happy Easter.
Well, it's ironic, isn't it, that he's head of the Church of England.
It is ironic.
It's a lot more about Islam and being a Muslim than he does about being a Christian. It's very odd, that.
It is odd.
So some would say he's almost been indoctrinated.
Well, some would say, I mean, I was speaking to Godfrey Bloom about this yesterday, who's quite wound up about it. He's actually calling for him to abdicate on the grounds that he's no longer fit for purpose as the monarch.
Well, he hasn't got any support
of the church and of the country. And there is a growing number of people who now say to me, are you sure he hasn't converted already?
But even those of us that are monarchists, that really support the institution of the monarchy, don't think it's fit for purpose.
No.
I'm one of them.
No, well, I think a lot of people, there's a growing number as well. Also on the show this morning, Andrew Bridgen, who was arrested by the police a few days ago on the grounds of putting out some kind of tweet that they didn't like. We'll hear all about that. Anne Widdecombe is also here. She was meant to be here, of course, yesterday, but we had a few problems. Congratulations, says Tony. You guys deserve it. Thank you very much indeed. Steve Baker, the former Northern Ireland minister, is going to join us in the studio. And Terry Edge, an interesting guy, is going to come and talk to us about the state of our sofas, because there's been a change in the law, apparently, about the fire retardant chemicals that are used in sofas and have been used in sofas forever in this country, which have now been thought to be sort of rather mind-numbingly dangerous and carcinogenic. So that's all going to change.
Has Steve Baker refound his right-wing credentials?
Well, he has.
When he used to be sort of proper Eurosceptic, and then he became all of a sudden a bit left and a bit woke. Has he kind of gone back to where he was?
Yes, he has. He's now, because he lost his seat in the 2024 election, and he's now kind of running a think tank, which is quite a right-wing think tank.
Right.
And so he's
I was a bit worried about him for a few months.
Yeah, I think a few people were. A few people said to me, why are you getting him on? Because we are a broad church up to a point, and you know, if he's willing to admit that he got that wrong, then fine.
So, it just seemed that maybe a little bit of pressure was put on him when he was an MP by the whips, and unfortunately he seemed to acquiesce rather than perhaps showing principle.
Well, I mean, maybe a good example of what went wrong with the Tory party, actually.
And still is wrong with the Tory party.
So many people in the Tory party are not really Tories.
Yeah, no, indeed. And they haven't got rid of them.
No,
the likes of Dominic Grieve and Jeremy Hunt. And,
I know.
I think Rory Stewart's still a member. I mean, come on, if you've got Rory Stewart in your party and you're pretending to be Conservatives with a small c, you ain't.
Yeah, exactly right.
You ain't.
I'd like Fiona and Edward Hughes to work together, says Robert. Oh yeah, we've got a poll, haven't we? I don't know if we can put it up yet. It's a bit early days and rushing around, but there's been a bit of a to-do over the last week or so with Edward Hughes. He's been suspended, as many of you will know. And yesterday he reported in to, not us, but to the Richie and Rogue show from the British Virgin Islands. I think it was was it the British Virgin Islands? Yeah. And Fiona McLeod, who's kicking up quite a fuss as well, because she turned up out there as well. And so we've got an actual poll for you asking whether you want the return of Edward Hughes, whether or not you want Fiona to carry on doing the job, or whether you want someone else. Have we got that poll?
No,
we haven't got it. We'll get it for you. But basically, I can find it. Hang on, if I can look.
I can give you. I've got it now, Mike.
Oh, you got it. Okay. Yeah, here we go. Here's the poll.
There we go.
There it is. Newsreader.
Oh wow.
Edward Hughes, Fiona McLeod, Hugh Edwards, or a generic AI bot. Edward Hughes, look at that, 51%.
Wow.
Or maybe the
Fiona's
AI...
on 35 though. I mean, you could ramp that up.
Maybe the AI child of the two of them. Hugh and Fiona.
Interesting.
We can't have children reading the news, I don't think.
Well, no, but it could be a grown-up child. You can do what you want with AI.
Grown-up child?
Yeah.
Steady. I think we should probably not go there. But anyway, yeah, so listen, the answer to the poll will be definitive. So for those of you who wish to really dump on Edward Hughes, I don't think he should come back because, quite frankly, I think he's a disgrace. And he's going to be dealt with by the HR department. He might not be able to come back anyway. He might be sent off to Coventry. Who knows?
Quick update already. Look.
Quick update. Look at that. 48-38. Ooh, this is going to be a close one. The funny thing about Fiona McLeod is that she's quite an attractive-looking woman. I don't think I'm wrong to say that. Some people think Edward Hughes is attractive.
Yeah.
But the women, apparently, fans of my show, don't like her at all.
Why do you think that is?
I think they're threatened. I don't know. It's an interesting question. Anyway, we'll look into that, and we'll keep giving up. We'll give you sort of 10-minute updates on the polls. I think it's going to be a good one. Let's talk about Donald Trump, though. Should we play a couple of clips, Pooch? Yeah. The first one, Trump with the Easter Bunny. Have a look at this.
Tory, and I don't think it gets much more hostile than Iran. They're capable fighters. They're very tough people. And there are others like that. You don't mind when the enemy is weak, but that enemy is strong. Not so strong like they were about a month ago.
It's almost like the bunny's ready to speak after him. Going to introduce him.
All, in my opinion, but we're soon going to find out, aren't we?
I mean,
Pakistan should not, and Afghanistan should be people.
All the Easter Bunny, Mr. President.
Oh my God! Look, he ran away.
So Biden sees the bunny, he thinks he's hallucinating, right? He thinks he's gone, Christ, there's a giant bunny doing in the White House Rose Garden.
I've got to pretend I didn't see it.
Yeah. But he look on his face. I think we should watch that one again. That is so funny.
Look, the Biden one?
Yeah, the Biden one, because his face is just literally, watch his face, right? He looks terrified.
Easter Bunny, Mr. President.
And then he walks off. And apparently, Trump said yesterday, there were so many great clips, we can't even play them all, but there was some great clip yesterday where Trump was talking to some journalist or other, and he said, yeah, the Easter Bunny loves Trump, and he said, he did away with Joe Biden and chased him off. Because he did, because Joe Biden ran away from him.
Nearly killed him off, I think.
And he's like, and he's not taking me out, he goes. But the idea of them standing together, and everybody's got it. I mean, the Times have got it on the front page. There he is, the Easter Bunny. Oh, there's
so,
a...
do you think it's J.D. Vance in a bunny
costume?
Well,
do you know what? I'm going to do a little rant about this later on, because I was saying to Pooch earlier, the whole point about journalism to me is telling people things that they want to know. And the first thing I want to know, and Pooch is the same, is who's inside the Easter Bunny?
Yeah.
Who is it? Is it J.D. Vance, or is it some other member of the team?
How do you security vet an Easter Bunny?
And I want to. And in the old days, as I said, I would be sent off, dispatched somewhere to find the parents of the guy inside the Easter Bunny
to interview
who lived somewhere in Minnesota.
Yeah.
And how
is
do
he
you
a
feel
Trump supporter?
And how does he vote? Or did he actually vote for Biden? All those stories, and which nobody now does anymore.
Yeah, but this image of Trump standing there as he is, kind of stony faced, talking about bombing Iran to the Stone Age, with the Easter Bunny on his left-hand side.
Yeah, let's have a look at. We can
hilarious.
literally play this all day.
And I don't think it gets much more hostile than Iran. They're capable fighters. They're very tough people. And there are others like that. You don't mind when the enemy is weak, but that enemy is strong. Not so strong like they were about a month ago, I can tell you. In fact, right now, they're...
But you know what? If I was in that Easter Bunny costume, I'd be nodding my head, wouldn't you? In agreement
absolutely.
about what he's about to do to Iran.
Oh, do you know, the only other thing that would make it better if it was a movie or something is an Easter Bunny kind of suddenly gets up on his hind legs and starts shooting with a fake gun or something.
Or if Trump decides to say, and now I'd like to introduce my friend to my left, the Easter Bunny, who'd like to tell us
the new Secretary of State for Defence.
Yeah, exactly.
The Easter Bunny.
Which areas we're going to bomb tomorrow.
Oh man, just really, really funny. Here's what he said about Starmer, because he gave Starmer another kicking yesterday.
He did.
Where he was saying that he was very much let down by NATO. He didn't specify Britain, but have a look at this Neville Chamberlain reference that he makes.
The UK has a long way to go. We don't want another Neville Chamberlain. Do we agree? We don't want.
We don't want another Neville Chamberlain. Stephen Barrett, our favourite barrister, has put out a tweet last night saying it's actually an insult to Neville Chamberlain to compare him to Keir Starmer.
Well, bearing in mind Neville Chamberlain is known in history as being the biggest appeaser of oppression and evil ever, on the basis of how he dealt with Adolf Hitler. So, that's quite some insult, isn't it? And they keep coming from Trump towards Starmer, don't they?
Well, they do. Well, why wouldn't they? I mean,
indeed.
he and I both. I mean, you can't really go very far without finding somebody to have a go at Keir Starmer.
And I think Starmer's also made a statement, hasn't he, in the last few hours, saying that where the US now have said that they're going to start bombing Iran infrastructure, around power plants, bridges and so on. Of course, Keir Starmer's come out very proudly, in his view, I'm sure, to say we will not be supporting the bombing of that infrastructure by way of allowing the US to use our bases. Yet again, obfuscating, cowardice, distancing himself from our greatest ally, and the one country of all that if it all goes horribly wrong for us militarily, we really need.
Yeah, exactly. And it seems extraordinary that he once again throws himself under the bus. And gets it completely wrong, because he does get it completely wrong.
At every opportunity. He's using every opportunity to say, I don't want any part of this.
Yeah, right.
And he might as well just have a big sign on his chest saying, I'm a coward.
I'm a coward, but he's obviously believing this nonsense that, the rest of the world is standing up to Donald Trump, and other countries are not going along with his illegal war. That's not a point worth getting behind.
No, but it epitomises what we know about the left, which is that they hate Britain and they love our enemies.
Yeah. Absolutely right. By the way, he doesn't mind using British drones to attack Russia and to attack Putin, because apparently, according to papers this morning, there was some bridges destroyed by the Ukrainians. He doesn't mind them destroying bridges. He just doesn't like Trump doing it. But it's our money and it's our drones, and so he's very much a part of that. So he doesn't mind. It's not the blowing up of bridges he doesn't like. He just doesn't want to blow up Iran's bridges. So what does that tell you?
Well, I think, again, it comes back to the appeasing of the Muslim vote, don't you?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's what it's all about, because he's being told constantly by the people that he has iftars with every 5 minutes. If you do that, you lose the complete Muslim vote. Yeah,
those Muslim community leaders that tell our police forces exactly how they can police in certain communities.
Exactly right.
Yeah, and
that bloke who strokes him for the Palestinian embassy.
But exaggerated, of course, because of what happened in the Gorton-Denton by-election.
Yes.
They are absolutely petrified of the Greens and the fact that the Greens have commanded the Muslim vote.
Well, the Greens are now overtaking him in the polls.
But we're 4 weeks away from probably the most significant local elections we've seen in decades.
Yes.
Where we know, and he knows, that Labour are going to lose, well, the reckoning is up to 2,000 councillors.
Yeah, I'd be surprised they've got any left at all. Meanwhile, a couple of super chats. Yeah, let's do some. Super chat from Cindy. Hi, Mike. Russell looks very Miami Vice today.
Well, thank you very much. I'll take that as a compliment. Was that an insult or a compliment?
Don Johnson or the other one? Don Johnson, I suppose.
Don Johnson, yeah.
Yeah. Do you know, and you probably know this because you're a car man, but they couldn't afford a real Ferrari.
I know, it's a kit car, wasn't it?
So, no, it was a Pontiac Firebird.
Yeah, no, I think they had one real one, but the rest of them were all kind of
but they had
made
to sort of snack a Testarossa-looking thing over the top of it, which is quite funny. They didn't wear socks, though. You got socks on?
I have.
He's got socks on because you're English, Mike, you keep accusing Edward Hughes of misbehaving. I've said before you need to listen to what he said, says Sonny Coastman. He was implying that Hugh Edwards would send pictures if people requested music, not him. Yes, but the point is, that was a made-up story. And you can't be a newsreader if you're going to make up stories, because then you can't be trusted.
No, because that's what the BBC do.
Yeah, exactly. And so that we can't have that. We cannot have that. Iran's supreme leader unconscious and receiving treatment in Qom.
That's a shame.
Iran's new supreme leader Mojtaba Khamenei is incapacitated and receiving medical treatment in the holy city of Qom, according to an intelligence assessment which suggests he's not capable of running the country.
Well, let's just hope it's...
Can we get an intelligence assessment of Keir Starmer, who's also not capable of running the country?
Well, I just hope in this instance it's very, very serious.
Yeah, I would hope so. This is a Times story this morning. Memo seen by the Times reveals the Supreme Leader's location for the first time. That's bad news for him if his location's been revealed. Yeah. What's that coming in?
See ya.
Incoming. We'll get on with that. Let's have another bit of Donald Trump, shall we, before we move on. Donald Trump with some of the kids that he had in the Rose Garden for Easter. And this was him telling them basically that if he gave them their autograph, they could sell it on eBay later for 25 grand. Which again, this is brilliant.
Why not?
Oh, go on.
You can sell it for 25,000 on eBay.
Sign mine.
I'll sell it.
Carolina, do you want to give Grandpa your
Caroline is the only one that doesn't want my autograph. She has zero. I would say Carolina has zero interest in my autograph. Oh, that's nice. I think I'm going to sign this. That way I'll say, I drew it. Look, I drew it. Look what I did, everybody. Now, Biden would use the auto pen. He'd have an auto pen problem. Joe Biden, he didn't sign. He was incapable of signing. He said, so they'd follow him around with this big machine. You know what it was called? An auto pen. And he'd have the auto pen signed for him. He'd take the paper, hand it to his guys, sign it with an auto pen, give it back. It's not too good, right?
So we're teaching the next generation of entrepreneurs there.
There's so many things you could say, but so many things you can't really say as well. A great message from Jane, who says she's just subscribed to the channel. Please do subscribe, because the more subscribers, the better. 150,000 we've just hit overnight. Thank you, Jane, for that. And also 14 million views now since the beginning, since January. So thank you to all of you. And there's a good reason for that, right? Bring back Edward, says Sammy. I love you, Edward. There's a good reason for that, because we have fabulous guests, including the likes of Russell Quirk, even though he does look like Don Johnson from Miami Vice. And of course, the wonderful, beautiful Kinsey Schofield in Hollywood, California. Kinsey, very good morning to you.
I love a Don Johnson reference. Hello, Russell. Hello, Mike. Good
how are you?
How the devil are you? I mean, it's hard not to talk about Donald Trump, first of all. I know we're going to talk about Meghan and Harry in a minute, but Donald Trump, an absolute tour de force in the Rose Garden yesterday, telling kids that Joe Biden used to use an auto pen, and they're all kind of looking at him baffled, going, what's he talking about? And there's one point where one of the little kids just turns away, and he's kind of like, I don't know what he's talking about. And then he goes, if you let me sign your piece of paper, it'll be worth 25 grand. You can sell it on eBay later. And then the Easter Bunny of all things, standing next to him on the balcony as he's talking about eradicating Iran.
I mean, he's very unpredictable, which I think is good when we're talking about strategy, war strategy, etc. But he also is a perpetual entertainer. I mean, we can't forget that this is the same guy that was on The Apprentice. We can't forget this is the same guy from Home Alone, because he's always an entertainer as well as a world leader.
He is extraordinary, because we're sitting here, and I mean, it's not really a laughing matter what's going on in Iran, and everyone's suffering in some way, shape or form, whether it's paying too much for their oil or just, generally worried about what's going to happen next. But he is somebody who is just not like anybody else. The kind of the so-called diplomatic type politicians are saying, well, it's not very diplomatic, it's not the way you conduct a war and all of this. But to whom I say, well, you guys haven't exactly done a great job of kind of rolling the pitch for everybody else. We've had problems in the Middle East for decades. You've done nothing about them. He's trying to fix that. It might be rocky and difficult and tricky, but at least he's doing it.
Yeah, I mean, if it's keeping nuclear, if he's going to try to keep terrorists at bay, then I'm capable of being his biggest cheerleader. If that's the ultimate objective, and you believe that, then I do have a hard time criticizing it. But if we find out later down the line that there was something nefarious going on, I will eat my words and I will apologize.
Yeah. Well, there's no need for you to apologise, Kinsey. I mean, it's not your fault, honestly. And you're perfectly welcome to change your mind at any time. You know, we believe in democracy here at the Mike Graham Show. So, Kinsey's a babe, it says here. It's awful being old, says David. Well, David, listen, I'm quite old. I don't find it awful at all. I've quite enjoyed it.
I'm old too, guys.
Yeah. Listen, well, you're not as old as I am. Let's talk a little bit as well about the old astronauts, because I'm sorry to say, as much as everybody loves the astronauts hurtling around in space, around the dark side of the moon, they've all got a bit woke, haven't they? And there's lots of talk this morning of how they're in tears. They're all making little love heart signs. I can't even do one. You know, I'm so useless at it. And you know, they're paying tribute to Mother Earth and naming and craters after one of the guy's dead wives. I mean, it's all a bit kind of. And they're all talking about how Apollo was terrible because they were all men. I'm not sure. I'm enjoying it, to be honest.
Well, I want Russell's opinion on this as well, because I know that he's got something up his sleeve. But I think when it comes to this stuff, we just want it to be lighthearted. We want to learn something new, but shoving all like Mother Earth stuff down our throat right now. No, just teach us something new and exciting.
Right. What do you think, Russell?
So I think the whole exercise is completely and utterly pointless and futile.
Right.
I don't understand. So I understand Elon Musk sending satellites up into space for commercial purposes, obviously, right? Communication and so on.
Those have been incredibly helpful worldwide when it comes
like Starlink
to...
So I get all that. I don't understand the moon thing, right? So we're not going to colonise it. We're not going to do anything with it. It doesn't have any oil and gas on it. And if it did have, because of the woke nature of what Mike's just said, we'd ignore it anyway. So I don't see the point in spending, and I don't understand it. NASA have spent something like, is it $10 billion on this particular exercise just to send a few people, and obviously there's a nice bit of DEI going on in terms of that capsule, in terms of who's in it, just to send a DEI capsule around the moon and back to beat what happened in 1972 at the cost of 10 billion quid. I don't understand it. It's a waste of money.
It'd be great if they met those guys from Mars Attacks, wouldn't it?
Or the clangers.
They all get destroyed because they're all so bleeding woke. But it is, I mean, and they're all hugging each other, they're all in tears. It's like, come on, guys, you're supposed to be scientists. You're supposed to be people who are, when the Apollo missions went up, there were people who were militarily trained. They were Navy pilots. They were, good guys. They were hard guys. They weren't sort of, hugging each other and making little heart signs, And they also faced incredible danger because they went up when it was actually really, really unknown. And, I think somebody once, when I was at NASA once in Houston, and they said that actually mission control in the 60s had less computer capability than your iPhone does.
Well, let's put this into context. And actually, but sorry about this, Kinsey, you probably won't understand this reference, given that you're an American and I'm going to talk about a British car here. But it was like sending the equivalent of an Austin Allegro to space, right? Yeah. Because it was 1972.
A second-hand one.
Yeah, and somehow they got back. So it's not that much of a feat, is it, to beat something from that long ago, which was an antiquated time technologically.
Right. Well, and I'm just focused on the two people that got stuck up there not too long ago that Elon Musk had to come in and save the day with, that came down very ill. They could hardly walk. They still have not spoken about that traumatic experience, probably because they've signed papers that, make sure that they legally can't. Because I'm much more interested in that story than what we're seeing today with the heart hands and all of the emotional expression. No, thank you.
Do you think they saw aliens, Kinsey? Is that what you're getting at here?
No. If I want to see aliens, I'll turn on Independence Day. I don't need to see them in space. Or
if you want to see any illegal aliens, just go down to the border. Oh no, they're not there anymore, are they? Because they don't come anymore because they were told that they'd get kicked out. But there we are. How about if you want to see aliens, why don't you pop up to Montecito and go and see Harry and Meghan with their new children's videos, which they said they would never make, right?
Well, and we don't even know how Harry's legally in the country. So that's a very good point you've just made, Mike. Is Harry legally in this country? I don't know, because he might have lied on his application about drug use.
Well, when he goes to Australia, which desk does he come back in through when he comes back to LAX? Does he go with his wife and they go through? I mean, I used to do that, but I had an I visa, which was a journalist visa when I was married to an American, and so I was allowed. They would allow me technically to go through with her, and they would just stamp me as a visiting non-resident alien, and that was all legal.
Right.
But I don't know what he's got in his passport that would suggest that, because I also had a friend who got married to an American woman. They went on honeymoon to Europe. When they got back to New York, they wouldn't let him in because they said, well, you haven't got a green card. So they sent him back to London to get a green card. So he had to stay there for 3 months until he could come back to America legally. So we don't even know if he's got a green card, do we?
I would love for that to happen to Harry, but he has friends in all the right places. Harry and Meghan have been very strategic in the way that they've become friends with high-profile political figures. Donald Trump, absolutely not. There's some real hostility there between them. But we do expect to see Harry and Meghan in Australia in the next few weeks for Meghan's 3-day girls getaway. For $3,000, you can have a group photo taken with Meghan Markle. And Prince Harry's also, I think he's speaking at a mental health summit while they're in Australia. And to your point, in Washington, D.C. last Tuesday, Prince Harry spoke at a privacy summit.
Oh, yeah.
And then said he'd been a victim of having his privacy exploited and not having any privacy since he was the day he was born. And he goes on these tours and talks about how you shouldn't post images of your children on the internet. And there's his wife sitting on her sofa in Montecito uploading Easter egg hunt photos and videos. So classic hypocritical behavior from Team Sussex.
Of course. Let's have a look at the videos. I think Pooch has them. Yeah, it's quite weird, that video, isn't it? It's a bit like something out of Children of the Corn. You know, there's no voice behind it. There's no motherly, hey kids, what are you doing? Blah blah blah. It's all just a bit kind of performative, isn't it?
It is, and I work with a man that trains law enforcement. He will sometimes be in the room while they are trying to pressure people to tell them where kidnapped children are. Like, he is a very talented and intimidating person. And he says that the way that Meghan teases people with these images of the children actually might be increasing interest and obsession with those children when it comes to the mentally unwell. And he says that while Meghan might claim she's trying to protect their privacy, ultimately, I think you and I might debate that she's trying to create hype around the big reveal that she's likely to monetize in something like People magazine, who will pay an ungodly amount of money for those types of images and reveals. But he says that she is endangering their children with these constant, flirtations of like, oh, here's just a little bit more of the face. Here's just a little bit more of the face. And I think that that's a legitimate fear. I think that that's a legitimate criticism and debate.
Yeah, it is, because if you are going to make a big deal about privacy, and that's fine if that's what you want to do, and everybody knows it's very easy. If you want to avoid the limelight, you just avoid the limelight. It's as simple as that. You don't post things on Instagram. I remember the Bridges family, Jeff Bridges and his dad, and Lloyd Bridges and all that crowd. They didn't like Hollywood much. They didn't fancy living in the sort of spotlight. They went and bought a ranch in Wyoming. And nobody ever went there. Nobody ever went to look for them. Nobody ever went to take pictures of them. Nobody flew over it. You can do that.
What, and they didn't do a Netflix series on that?
And they also didn't do a Netflix series, and they didn't actually, send out pictures of themselves in different, but you know what I mean? It's perfectly possible to live a life outside of the public eye.
Kinsey, I'm in LA. Hope to see you actually in amongst all the homeless and the fentanyl and so on in a couple of weeks. Are you saying that I'm going to have the great pleasure of missing Harry and Meghan? They won't be in LA. They'll be in Australia when I'm there.
I need to know the exact date, but don't act like you wouldn't be thrilled to see Prince Harry at a Dunkin' Donuts.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because that'll happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
But But yeah, we expect to see them in Australia. Otherwise, I think that I was told Meghan might open a Soho house in Australia too, which I feel would be very un-Duchess of her. But, she hasn't pretended to be a Duchess other than using the name for the last 6 years. So we'll have to wait and see if that comes to fruition.
Yeah, and we're told as well that there's going to be people trying to disrupt their visit, which they won't like very much either. Not just generally outside of events and things, but also inside of that wellness centre. Supposedly there's people who are going to go in and sort of get in the way, if you like, or make a lot of noise, which she won't like, will she?
She won't like. I mean, do you know what the circumstances were to get into this event? You had to write a testimonial about how Meghan Markle changed your life, and you had to list yes, and you had to list all of your social media accounts, your first and last name, and they had a team of researchers that would go through your social media to ensure that you hadn't been critical of the Sussexes.
Oh wow!
On top of having to pay an ungodly amount of money, I think there's not a single person on this earth that I would pay. I take it back, Robert Pattinson. But I would not, there's not a lot of people out there that I would pay $3,000 to meet. You know what I mean?
No, especially with about 600 other people who say you get, hello, how are you? Nice to see you. Thanks for coming. Thanks for paying my bill. Off you go.
Yeah.
It's not exactly a private audience, is it? Absolutely incredible. Well, listen, so much going on. Great to see you, Kinsey. Appreciate you spending some time with us. Thank you very much indeed. Have a lovely rest of the day. I hope you had a good Easter, by the way.
Thank you. Happy Easter to you too.
Good stuff. See you soon. Look out for Russell Quirk. He'll be the guy in the rented Porsche.
Looking like Don Johnson.
Looking like Don Johnson without socks. Yeah, exactly right. Good to see you. Kinsey Schofield, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much indeed. They are complete hypocrites, aren't they?
Yes, totally and utterly. And the fact that we all know, right, because of their track record, that she is about to monetise those children.
Of course.
That she's been telling us for years she holds so precious.
Yeah.
The irony of now monetising those children when she's set her whole stall out, as has Harry, about privacy and the fact that obviously he, as a child growing up, was oppressed by the media, which is obviously why he's got this obsession now with suing them and so on.
Although, his case against Associated Newspapers is not going very well. No. And the judge apparently is not keen at all on some of the stuff they've come out with. But
how can they subject their children, as they're about to that public eye when they said they wouldn't, for all the right reasons, just to earn a few dollars? That's exactly what she's about to do.
Yeah, because they've got to earn it somehow, because, it doesn't
or Netflix,
looks at that garden.
Spotify.
That garden's going to cost you about £1,000 a week
that's
just
quite
to keep it the way it looks, Update on the newsreader poll, which is going on today. Edward Hughes coming in with 49%. Fiona McLeod, 36%. It's going to run all the way to the wire, this one. Hugh Edwards, only 6%, thankfully. And a generic AI bot, 9%. So it's a two-horse race by the looks of it between Edward Hughes and Fiona McLeod. Let's talk about some other stories out there. Sorry, we've got the news. We've got the news with Fiona McLeod, presumably.
Good morning. I'm Fiona McLeod. Good morning. A major 6-day strike by resident doctors begins today in England, causing widespread NHS disruption. Patients are urged to use emergency services only for urgent needs and keep non-urgent appointments. On the brighter side, benefits and pensions have risen with the new financial year, and the controversial two-child benefit cap has ended, boosting support for larger families by an average of £4,100 a year and aiming to lift hundreds of thousands of children out of poverty. In other news, controversy swirls around Kanye West's headlining Wireless Festival, with the Prime Minister calling it deeply disturbing and sponsors pulling out. Warmer weather is on the way, with temperatures hitting 24 degrees Celsius later this week after Storm Dave. And knife crime initiatives are expanding in at-risk schools. Remember to like and subscribe. See you later, alligators.
She's got a heron now as well. I think she's trying to influence the vote, because obviously with a heron she could get extra votes. She's running second place at the moment to Edward Hughes. But what do you make of that replacement? I think she's better than Edward Hughes, don't you?
Yeah, I do. I think she's very seductive indeed.
Really?
And I can see why she's splitting opinion.
Yeah.
She's definitely flirting, isn't she? She's flirting with us all.
I don't get that at all. No, I don't get that vibe.
I think you know exactly what you're doing, Mike Graham.
Not at all. No, I think, no, that's an outrageous allegation. I think that basically she, as a woman, is entitled, under the rules that we currently have, to have an opportunity to read the news. And the way that she speaks. He says later tigers, right? Nobody cares about that. She says later alligators. Everybody's going, she's talking about sex.
But it's not what she says, it's how she says
Yeah.
it. Which I think is wonderful and beautiful. I'm going to
How about this? Cindy says, hi, Mike, Russell is a babe.
Of course. Thank you.
You know.
It's the Don Johnson thing going on.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Imagine what it would be like if he wore loafers and no socks.
And drove a white Ferrari Testarossa.
Yeah, on top of a Pontiac Firebird.
Here we go, Mike. Look, this is the problem.
What's this? Fiona, stop whispering. You're not Marilyn Monroe. Please bring back Edward or another male.
No, keep
From
Fiona.
me here. Why
Keep Fiona.
does it have to be another male? Why can it not be? She's not whispering. It's just the way she talks. It's just her diction.
Yeah. What about if it was a Nicola Sturgeon type with a Scottish accent?
That would be probably less appealing.
Do you think?
Yeah, I think so. But listen,
Aesthetically and morally.
I'm happy to go with the viewers' views here. 49% at the moment, Edward Hughes in the lead, Fiona McLeod 36%. It could change. We'll keep you updated as much as we can. Also, we've been doing this last week, Pooch, and we should be doing it, I suppose, this week as well. We didn't do it yesterday because it was Easter Monday. But we'll take a call. We can now take phone calls, right?
I love this. I love this.
We were taking calls after 9:30 on the new UK Live channel. So if you're on Substack, you can get access to the link in which you can get through to us and we can talk to you. We did it very successfully last week. So Charlotte's just going to set that up on the Substack. So there we are. There you go. Have your say. 7:37 in the morning. We've got to talk about the doctors' strike. Because they've started.
Starts again today.
It started 37 minutes ago, 7 a.m.
But when we say started, I mean this is the 15th such doctor strike in 3 years.
Yeah.
And the papers are reporting today that it's cost us, and it is us, not the
3
government,
billion.
it's our money, £3 billion.
Yeah.
And not only that, but of course, in this quest to improve and innovate the NHS, the doctors themselves, given the disruption and given that cost, are responsible now, it's said, for taking the NHS backwards. So well done, junior doctors. Congratulations. You're not only greedy, you're stupid, but also retrograde, it seems.
And the story yesterday was, as I predicted, they've done this particularly in terms of the dates because of the timing of it all, because they haven't worked really since last Wednesday. They didn't work Maundy Thursday, day before Good Friday. Didn't work Good Friday, Easter Saturday,
Do you think starting
Easter
today is
Sunday.
just a coincidence, though?
Starting today, they've actually been on Reddit exchanging views saying, isn't it great, because we can basically get 10 days off. We don't have to worry about childcare because we won't be at work. And they won't be coming back until something like a week on Tuesday. Or a week today, I should say. Sorry.
Yeah, so obviously the timing of the strikes is no coincidence, so they can have much longer at their homes in Provence, no doubt. But the other thing that was in the papers, the reason this is costing £3 billion, or has cost £3 billion, is because every time a junior doctor goes on strike, they have to bring in somebody else to cover. So what they're doing is going to agencies, bringing in consultants, and those consultants apparently are charging the NHS, and therefore us, your money, £350 an hour because of these guys going on strike.
I know. And how about this, right? How about this sort of really, really lazy, lacklustre reporting from the Times newspaper? Sir Jim Mackay, the Chief Executive of NHS England, said, the NHS, this is a quote, has made real progress this year in bringing waiting times down, and the money we have to spend on managing the damaging and disruptive strike could and should be being ploughed into reforming patient care. They haven't brought waiting lists down.
No, what they've done is
a lie.
They've taken people off that are dead.
Yes, they've also removed people. We had a story in the Sunday Times, I think it was, not long ago, which said actually there are incentives being given to doctors to just wipe lists and just take names off
And to
lists,
NHS Trust,
whether they're dead or not. We've also been
them.
told that the GPs have been told not to refer people to hospital. You know, and this is the Times saying this. Waiting lists have been falling steadily over the past 2 years, down to 7.2 million from a peak of 7. No, they haven't. They haven't.
We all know that those figures are being manipulated for the sake of politics. I'd ask anyone that's been to hospital recently, that's sat in A&E for 23 hours or has had their operation cancelled, and they'll tell you that that is absolutely not true.
Garbage, I really, really hate, and I'm going to, as I say, have a rant about the problems with journalism at the moment. Well said, Russell, says Tony. It's exactly that, pure and utter greed. It is. And how about this one in the Mail, right? I don't know if you've seen this. Pages 10 and 11 of the Daily Mail. This will scare the bejesus out of you. Apparently, it turns out that NHS staff took 8 million sick days last year for mental health and anxiety. 8 million sick days.
Yes.
Right? Which I mean, I don't even know if they put a figure on that, but the amount of money that will have cost us will be absolutely exorbitant, won't it?
Yeah, and apparently I read fairly recently that these same junior doctors that clearly don't want to work because they've been on strike 15 times in the last 3 years, there's now over 6,000 of them that have played the whole mental health card, the whole ADHD thing and so on, specifically so that they don't have to work and be on call in evenings and at weekends.
Yes.
My suggestion to these doctors is, why are you doctors?
Right.
I mean, honestly, you're on about 90 to 100k a year. You got your Tesla. Most GPs, for instance, don't work weekends even.
No.
If you don't like the job because you don't like the hours and you don't like the pay, go and do something else.
Right.
Just do something else. I do not understand.
Well, why spend 7 hours qualifying to do a job you don't want?
Yeah, but also don't give us this bullshit, frankly, that this is a vocational thing. You're doing it to help other people. Clearly you're not, because you are putting other people's lives at risk. People are dying and suffering the consequences of these strikes.
And there will be people who have been waiting for a very long time to get some kind of procedure done, which was due to be done this week, which will have been cancelled. And then they'll be back on yet another waiting list, which will probably take another 6 months minimum, maybe a year, to get to. And a lot of these will be elective surgeries, procedures which you don't necessarily need as an emergency, but that you need because it will improve your life.
Unless you're an asylum seeker, when of course you get regular doctor appointments and dentistry and so on.
As well.
So maybe the answer is, if you are on a waiting list right now, take a ferry over to Calais, jump on a dinghy, come back over. Border Force will help you, by the way, and actually you might get treated for your ailment much, much quicker.
You might well do.
Can we, before I go, I don't know where I'm going, by the way, can we talk about Mohammed...
where are you going?
Well, I'll stay here for the rest of the day if you want. Can we talk about Mohammed Fahir Amaz and Mohammed Ahmad?
Yes, these are the two Manchester Airport people, aren't they?
Yeah, they are, who battered several police officers a couple of years back, went to trial, and there were some issues in terms of juries reaching verdicts, which is bewildering to me, because guess what? There's lots of CCTV that shows you exactly what they did and the extent of which those injuries were.
Yes, wouldn't it be helpful if, in a case where you're trying to prosecute two people for beating up the police,
you see what they
actually
did.
had footage of them beating up the police?
Yes, and breaking a policewoman's nose.
Because if you had that, you'd think it would be an open and shut case.
Pretty decisive, I think. Pretty decisive. So their retrial starts today, and I think we wait with bated breath, don't we? In terms of how that jury...
Because an awful lot... one of the questions that I used to get asked most last year was, what's happened to these guys? I think one of them was found guilty of something, and the other one wasn't.
But there was one police officer...
sort of ongoing scenario. Right?
One allegation in particular that, could not be proven, hence the retrial. But look, they're as guilty as hell, frankly, aren't they? And also, not forgetting, later on this month, there's another trial popping up, which is those Ukrainian individuals that decided to set fire to things that might or might not be owned by the Prime Minister.
Yes.
That'll be very interesting. I suspect there's a lot of people running around right now, Mike, saying to those Ukrainians, plead guilty, so we don't have a trial, so there's no disclosure, we'll give you whatever you want.
Well, it's known as the Lucy Connolly defence.
Yes.
Right, just plead guilty, we'll sort you out.
What they don't want, but you and I really want, is them standing up in court, giving evidence and opening up like a Pandora's box, exactly why it was that those Ukrainian young men decided to target Keir Starmer.
Yeah, and his car, and his house. And his other house.
Yeah. At the same time as, let's just say, some questionable narrative around his family arrangements.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
Read into that what you will. I'm not suggesting anything.
No, obviously, these are cases which have not yet come through the court system, so it would be wrong for us to in any way allude to guilt or innocence of any kind. Just to let you know.
We would never do that.
How about this from Lisa? I'm currently waiting 5 years for surgery with plastics and 3 years waiting for a deviated septum. Absolute joke, but if you challenge them, then you're accused of abuse. It's insane. Yeah, you can't question anybody in the NHS, can you?
No, it's on a pedestal.
Because, you get to see that sign they show you, we will not tolerate any kind of abuse.
But
well, maybe you do your job properly then.
Yeah, but the fact that it can't be criticised is why it's in such a bloody mess.
Exactly right. Karen says, I've made an appointment to be ill and to see my doctor in 3 weeks' time. Yes, Russell, stay where you are, please. There you go. Well, that's a vote of confidence for you. Speaking of asylum seekers, Reform have got a new policy, according to Zia Yusuf, on countries which, when Reform get into power, I say when, countries that are seeking reparations under the David Lammy school of let's give as much money away as possible, no more visas for you lot then.
This is such a rare bit of common sense in Britain, but not from Zia Yusuf, by the way, because Zia is always full of common sense, in my opinion.
Yeah.
What he said is to those that have said, particularly the Caribbean nations, but African nations as well, that are still harping on about this ridiculous reparations thing. Bearing in mind, I think the total sum of reparations now, I think they're demanding £18 trillion, which is 7
Benny
times.
Henry's behind it all, isn't it?
Of course he is. 7 times the entire size of the British economy. So, I mean, we can't afford anything, let alone now paying out £18 trillion in reparations. So Zia Yusuf, I think, very, very cleverly has said, OK, if you're going to insist that Britain pays for something that, by the way, slavery is something that we stopped in the early 1800s. And as he rightly points out, since then, we've given trillions of pounds to the Caribbean, Africa and so on in foreign aid. Obviously, we've provided an education system, a political system, a banking system and so on to all of these far-flung countries. But if you insist that we should pay you reparations, which we're not going to, then we're going to make sure that we don't grant you any student or visitor visas whatsoever to come to this country. And that, I think, is very, very commonsensical. It's appropriate, it's right, might focus their minds a little bit.
Well, it might do. Because at the moment, everything that comes anywhere near the government just gets taken for a long ride, and we get to pay for everything.
But the Deputy Prime Minister, as you say, entertaining the idea that we should bankrupt Britain to give money to countries that we saved from slavery.
Yes, I know. Make it make sense. somebody make it make sense. How about this? Speaking of making sense, the wireless gig visa snub. This is for Kanye West now, according to The Sun. Kanye to be canned as festival risk acts. Now, this is a story about Kanye West, who is said to be the holder of several anti-Semitic views, has made some pretty distasteful, shall we say, statements, and also put some adverts out during the Super Bowl, I think. I can't remember if it was this year or the year before. I think it was the year before. Anyway, he's coming to headline the Wireless Festival, and all sorts of brands are pulling out of supporting it. Pepsi, Diageo, Rockstar Energy Drink and PayPal have now said we don't want to sponsor it. But there's some talk in The Sun that Keir Starmer, who finds it very distasteful, apparently this man wants to come and perform, that the government might ban him from coming to the UK.
Yeah, and the boss of the Wireless Festival, of course, has said in the last 24 hours that he's not going to cancel Kanye West. Now, some people will take issue with that, particularly Keir Starmer and the left. Now, I actually agree that Kanye should not be barred from Britain. And the reason is that we either believe in freedom of speech or we don't. Now, I'm not saying by any stretch that I agree with anything that Kanye West has said. I think he's mentally ill, frankly, and he's an anti-Semite. He's an anti-Semite. He said all sorts of horrendous things about the Holocaust. He said that,
Well, if that's the case, then surely we should be kicking a load of people out from the Green Party who are not allowed to be here either.
Well, lots of pro-Palestinians that have walked around over the last 2 or 3 years with T-shirts that say "From the River to the Sea" and have had kind of faux ISIS flags in Trafalgar Square. Maybe we should get rid of those. So I think distasteful as he is, he should not be banned, because otherwise, where is that threshold and who decides on that threshold of what is offensive enough to ban someone from this country? I think what should happen is the free market should prevail, and anyone that has got a ticket or thinking about buying a ticket to Wireless should think very, very carefully about whether they want to go and see, an idiot like this, an offensive idiot like this perform. So I would suggest that commercially, those that oppose what he stands for in terms of saying that Hitler was misunderstood, the Nazis did some good, which is absolutely atrocious, shouldn't ban him, but you should march with your wallets. Don't go to the Wireless Festival.
Well, interestingly, there's a guy called what's his name here? Festival Republic's managing director Melvin Benn last night released a statement defending the booking, pointing out that Kanye West music is widely played on UK radio, which is interesting. He also says that he's a committed anti-fascist who in the 1970s lived on one of the Israeli kibbutzes that was attacked in the October 7th attacks in 2023. He also said, in a reference to Kanye's mental health struggles, having had a person in my life for the last 15 years who suffers from mental illness, I've witnessed many episodes of despicable behaviour that I've had to forgive and move on from. So, I mean, my bet is that in the end, the commercial pressure will be such on the Wireless Festival that it will look like they can't make any money or they can't afford to pay it.
Well, that will be the sponsors.
In which case, they'll just have to cancel it.
The sponsors pulling out will be hundreds of thousands of pounds, and obviously, but it will be the ticket sales, obviously, where they really come a cropper. Maybe they can't get out of this. Maybe the contract that has been signed doesn't provide for Wireless Festival changing their mind. So this isn't about morals and principles, I'm afraid. This might just be because of the commercial imperative. as in the contract between Wireless and Kanye West. So looks like he's going to come, unless Starmer steps up in his normal Orwellian way and decides to ban someone for having an opinion.
Well, I mean, the trouble is with Starmer is that he can say he's going to do that, and then he'll probably U-turn on it.
Well, he might, but it's the sort of populist thing you expect him to do, even though, as you say, he hasn't done it with certain other people, whether it be Palestinian protesters or whatever. Those people that actually should have been stopped because they've been inciting racial hatred on the streets of Britain for the last 3 years or so. He's done nothing about those.
No.
Let's see what he does from a populist point of view for PR purposes with Kanye West.
Yeah. Sadiq Khan's quite quiet about it, isn't he?
It does seem to be, yeah.
He doesn't have much to say about anti-Semites, strangely.
Yeah.
How about this from Steve? Interesting that they're happy for that scumbag Bob Villan to spout his anti-Semitic filth. Well, that's a good point. I suppose their argument would be, well, he doesn't have to be allowed into the country since he already lives here.
But that was also promoted by the BBC, of course, who found kind of no case to answer, as did the police. Unbelievable.
Mr. Cumbrian Loyal says, call me old-fashioned but a black Nazi. Well, have you never done much about the history of Africa if you don't think there's such a thing as a black Nazi? Because there's plenty of them. Trust me. They might not call themselves that, but they are. I would love to see Arnie doing the news, says Dog Mother. You mean as in Schwarzenegger? We'll get Rolf Schulhammer to do the news. And then finish it with every day. I'll be back tomorrow with the news at 6. Can anyone name even one of his songs? Is he meant to be any good? I honestly have no idea. This is Yee, as he's now known. To be honest, I'm not a big fan of his music. I don't think I could name one of his songs.
No, I won't be starting to listen. I won't be downloading anything from him on Spotify. We haven't talked about James Bond.
No, we haven't, no. It's not really in the papers, the James Bond story, though.
But a very controversial kind of opinion this is.
There was a story, I think, a couple of days ago, wasn't there?
Yesterday, I think, where there's a certain Hollywood director, Paul Feig, or Feig, F-E-I-G, who suggested that Sydney Sweeney, the American actress, can you say actress anymore?
I do.
American actress.
She is a woman.
Should be.
I think demonstrably she is a woman.
She should be James Bond, or rather, I guess, Jane Bond. Now, I have, again, an opinion on this, as you would expect, which is that James Bond should neither be a woman or should be American, frankly, because it was written by Ian Fleming as a man and a British man. I don't see how you can be a British spy if you're actually an American.
But it's already, the 007 thing has already been messed about with, hasn't it? Because I think in one of the most recent James Bond films, 007 was a woman.
Yes, for a period of time. Yeah, exactly, until Bond came back.
Because they took his 007 away.
Yeah.
Which I found a bit unbelievable, really, because a bit like Eric Cantona, you retire the shirt and you don't give number 7 out at Manchester United. But why would you give 007 out?
Yeah, but let's again be controversial in saying, but it's true that the reason that they did that, of course, now the Bond series is owned by Amazon, so it will take a woke turn. In that last film, they gave 007 to an actress who was black.
Right.
Why do you think they did that? Just to tick a couple of boxes.
Indeed.
Let's be honest, that's what it was. So I wouldn't put it past Amazon if they now decide that, I don't know, Bond should be a one-legged lesbian in a wheelchair. I don't know.
Yeah, well, it wouldn't be surprising, but I mean, nobody would watch it. That would be the thing. And then they'd have to go back to where they were at the beginning.
They don't say go woke, go broke for no reason at all.
No.
Just basically ask anybody that... ask Anheuser-Busch, who decided to put Dylan what's his name, as the face
Mulvaney,
of Mulvaney as the face of Bud Light. It cost them $3 billion in losses by way of their share price. So, carry on, Amazon, see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, surely I think that, I mean, again, it's difficult, isn't it? Because you think that actually, you've won against the wokists, and then they sort of pop back up again and do something really stupid. But most of the time now, the woke stuff tends to look really, really bad.
Yeah, no, it does. It comes back to one of them. But on the kind of semi-serious note, we do want to know who the next Bond is. We've been talking about this for about 3 or 4 years. Since Daniel Craig said he was going to, put his Walther PPK down, we've been debating who it's going to be.
Yeah, right.
So, is it Idris Elba? I think it'd be brilliant, by the way.
He's getting a bit old now, though, isn't he?
Yeah, maybe. Who's the guy that played Superman? British guy. Can't remember. Henry Cavill.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. He'd be fantastic, Henry Cavill.
He'd be one.
But not Sydney Sweeney, I'm afraid.
I don't think so.
No.
There's 2 reasons why she can't be.
I mean, look, this is polarising. Maybe a lot of people think that it should be a woman or it could be a woman. I don't think so. And it definitely cannot be a bloody American.
No.
It just can't be.
No, I think that's absolutely right. Andrew Bridgen's here. Russell, great to see you. You don't have to leave if you don't want to. But we're going to talk to Andrew Bridgen here, former Tory MP, of course. And I guess campaigner would be the way to describe Andrew this morning. Andrew, very good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Mike.
Now, I'm disturbed to read your statement that you put out the other day because of an incident that happened when you were apparently arrested for posting something on social media. Tell us what happened.
Well, I wasn't arrested. I got a call from Leicestershire Police, and I was invited in for a voluntary interview.
Invited? Oh, okay then.
Yeah, I guess had I refused to attend voluntarily, then I would have been arrested and taken for questioning. And yeah, I was questioned under caution about an allegation under the Communications Act,
Yes.
malicious communication, even.
Right.
And it related to a tweet that I'd put out or retweeted back in January. The interview lasted about 22 minutes. I presented a comprehensive statement in my defence, and I'm pleased to say that 6 days later I was told there was no further action. This is a pattern of behaviour I'm seeing. Well, for me, since I'm no longer an MP at the last election, yeah, it's been fairly harassment from the police, unfortunately. My take-home message for anybody is: do not take the advice of the duty solicitor. I mean, if they just said to you, "Well, did you tweet it?" and if you said yes, well, you'll have to plead guilty then. You'll be in front of a judge and you're going to probably get a prison sentence.
Yeah.
If you actually fight it and stand your ground, it would appear that the CPS haven't got the appetite, particularly. In my case, the tweet involved the Amelia meme, which has become a bit of an icon of having a go at the government. Well, whether people know or not, Amelia was actually created by the Home Office. It was in a game which was for training or teaching, indoctrinating 11 to 18-year-olds in a multiple choice game, where if they agree with Amelia, they got basically the threat of being put on a terrorist list.
Right.
And people didn't like their children being indoctrinated and intimidated like that. I did actually put in my statement that I felt that the way the Home Office were conducting this game to train these young people under the threat of having a terrorist order placed against them, that it amounted to child abuse.
Yeah.
And the fact that the meme has now been captured and is used for anti-government propaganda and signalling, obviously they find it pretty annoying.
Yeah, no, of course. But so the tweet that you're accused of sending was a retweet. So effectively, it was not your original tweet. It wasn't something that you dreamed up.
And 1,900 people retweeted my retweet.
Right. And presumably 1,899 of those were not asked to go and see Her Majesty's or His Majesty's Constabulary. So the person who originated the tweet, as far as we know, has not been asked to see the police at all. So why would they pick on you then?
That's a question we'd have to ask the police. I can say, in the local police's defence, I mean, Mike, when I went to the police station locally, the first policeman I met when I got on the premises shook my hand and said, "When are you getting back into politics? It was much better when you were the MP." And the officer who interviewed me, I did complain that obviously it's been months, and you've now pulled me in, and he did off the recording tell me it had been actually on his desk for a number of weeks, but he said his remarks were, "I've got bigger fish to fry than this."
Right. So the inference there being that somebody above him suggested that he better get on with it because it was something they needed to do, right?
Yes, and you've read the statement. It is comprehensive. It makes it widens the issues. It raises questions about the government's policy of creating a far-right meme, which any children who support her views or basically espouse anything that's not pro-migration, they will get sanctions within game, which obviously children could find quite concerning because they actually simulate what you would get from the police. That you've got wrongthink. So I think the Home Office have been hoisted on their own petard with regard to Amelia,
right?
And also pointing out the the pattern of harassment I've suffered over the last sort of 18 months. And I think in the end of the day, it was a big hole in the foot. And clearly the CPS, I mean, this would have gone to the Home Office because it puts the Home Office in the frame for creating the character in the first place.
Yeah.
And obviously it's a defence of my human rights, and we all have the right to free speech. But of course, if you plead guilty under the advice of a duty solicitor, you won't have a hearing, you won't have a jury, you won't have that option, and you will be straight in front of a judge, and you will be getting well, they'll tell you it'll be a reduced sentence or reduced sentence, and of course that's completely down to the judge.
Right.
And you could
so
end
when
up
you were actually in the sort of custody suite, whatever they want to call it these days, as opposed to
they're interview rooms.
In the interview room, right? So what was that like? How would you describe the atmosphere in there?
Well, unfortunately, I've been interviewed on a number of occasions, so it's pretty old hat. But they're small rooms, normally just enough room for sort of 4 people.
Yeah.
I didn't take my barrister in with me. I was prepared, and so there were just two of us in there. And
did they record it?
It's all recorded. It's recorded, and half of the interview takes the part of the disclaimers or the declarations you have to make before you can give a statement nowadays. Right. So you have to answer questions as to yes or no that you may be under the influence of drugs or alcohol, right, which may make you incapable of answering properly. Whether you've got the one that interested me most probably was, are you suffering from any mental health problems or depression? I nearly answered, isn't everybody, given the state of the country? but I have avoided that quip.
And I mean, in terms of what advice you get from solicitors, if you say that you are suffering from something like that, that probably helps your case, I would imagine.
Probably yes. But a doctor who I was at university with told me once, if you ever have the choice of going to prison or a mental health unit, always go to prison, because we don't have to let you out of the mental health unit.
Very true. But I mean, it is a terrible kind of embarrassing stain on law and order in this country that this is the kind of thing that's going on. Because, for example, do you know, even if they say there's no further action being taken, whether this incident is being recorded as some kind of, non-crime hate incident? Have they assured you that it's not going to be recorded? Have they said that they're going to expunge it from any record? Are they going to destroy the interview tape? I mean, what rights do you have over that?
I don't think you have a lot. And historically, I have spoken, in fact, to a number of individuals, including a former police officer himself, probably 8 or 9 years ago. And what people should generally check under freedom of information or a direct subject access request, their own criminal record, because you'll be surprised that the police sometimes, shall we say, generously make mistakes and put criminal convictions on people who've never had them.
Wow.
And that was a former police officer. And the reason he knew about it was one of his colleagues who's still serving came round to his house and said to him, you need to check your police record, go and ask for a copy of it.
Interesting.
And he said, well, of course, I haven't got one.
Yeah.
I was a police officer. He said, well, go and check.
Fascinating.
And he had fraud and assault placed on his criminal record when he'd never been convicted of any of it.
That's extraordinary, isn't it? And in terms of your other harassment incidents, have they all been similar? Have they all been sort of dealt with and then you've been told that no further action is going to be taken? You've been called in on several occasions, you said. Any of those ever come to anything?
No, nothing at all. One of them dragged on for 4 months, though, hanging over me. And yeah, I mean, it's not just that, Mike. I mean, legal representation costs you money.
Yeah, of course.
And I've got access. Yes, I've got access to some good quality legal advice, which most people probably haven't. But it is expensive, and they can do this to you every day of the week.
Yeah, I mean, it's extraordinary, isn't it? Absolutely extraordinary. Have you been in touch with the Free Speech Union about any of this?
I haven't. I have put it out on my social media. It's got quite a lot of interest over the last few days. I was rather hoping that someone like the Black Belt barrister would pick it up and take the public through it. It's a salutary lesson for us all, and obviously, as experienced of being put under pressure as I probably am, it still is not a pleasant experience to have to go to a police station and sit there and go through all of that and have your tapes recorded and then being told, it's not my decision, so this will have to be referred upwards. And I think that statement of mine will have ended up at the Home Office for sure. It would have gone through the local police, through the CPS, up to the Home Office and back. And it's interesting that within 36 hours of me giving that statement, the government put out a notice saying that there will be no more visits for these non-crime hate incidents. Bear in mind, mine wasn't that. Mine was an allegation of malicious communication.
Right.
And as I left after the interview, because obviously I didn't know then that it was going to be no further action, I did ask the police who'd made the complaint. And I was informed by the police, but honestly not very convincingly, that it was an anonymous complainant.
Right. And you don't have any rights to find out who that is, right?
No. I mean, I thought under English law it was habeas corpus, so you have to show me the body. So no victim, no crime. Well, I don't know. There may be no victim. It may be somebody in the government did it.
And in terms of where this is all coming from, harassment-wise, what do you suspect is the source of it? I mean, do you think it's government? Do you think it's Home Office? Do you think it's
it's higher than that. You've got to remember when I stood up and stopped the government, my government at the time, until I was expelled from the Conservative Party for life for raising concerns about the safe and effective COVID vaccines, allegedly, to stop them being shoved into the arms of healthy under fives down to babies of 6 months. My final warning before I was slung out of the Conservative Party for life. And I'll be honest, now looking back now, I was hoping for a longer sentence of expulsion than life. They told me, Andrew, there's currently no political appetite for your views on the vaccines. There may be in 20 years' time, and you're probably going to be proven right then. But in the meantime, you need to bear in mind you're taking on the most powerful vested interest in the world with all the personal risk for you that will entail should you continue to do so. I mean, it's the most powerful vested interest in the world. Yeah.
And have you got any hope that will stop now, or do you worry that it will continue?
I think it's getting harder for them to repeatedly keep pulling me in on spurious allegations and putting me through. And there is a saying, Mike, which I think is very apt. It's in politics and various other things, is that the process is the punishment, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. Well, of course, if you listen to Keir Starmer, the process is faulty, so they have to change the process. But, what do I know?
Well, and stress is a killer, and they like to put you under stress. That's the whole point of the thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. It's dreadful. Well, glad to see that you've got out of this one anyway, and let us know if they try it again, and we'll see what we can do.
Oh yes, well you'll be able to send me a file in a cake, will you, Mike? Thank you very much. I think I'd rather Charlotte made the cake, to be honest.
Yes, to be honest. Listen, the Mike Graham Show has tentacles everywhere. Trust me. We can get to parts that other places can't reach. But anyway, there we are. Andrew, good to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Andrew Bridgen, former Tory MP, being put through the ringer, it would seem, by Leicestershire Police on a number of different occasions and for a number of rather spurious reasons, all of which have come to nothing, it would seem. And the most recent one being hauled in for a malicious communication of something that was retweeted by 1,900 other people, I think he said. And yet nothing happened to any of them. Very strange. Very strange indeed. Coming up later on in the show, Steve Baker's here. He's going to be talking to us about what he makes of the current state of the nation. And also, I'll be asking him about almost £1 billion paid to dead benefits claimants. There's a story on page 4 of the Daily Telegraph today. Also, Anne Widdecombe is going to be here in a little while. But first, we've got some news with Fiona McLeod.
Good morning. I'm Fiona McLeod. Good morning. A major 6-day strike by resident doctors begins today in England, causing widespread NHS disruption. Patients are urged to use emergency services only for urgent needs and keep non-urgent appointments. On the brighter side, benefits and pensions have risen with the new financial year, and the controversial two-child benefit cap has ended, boosting support for larger families by an average of £4,100 a year and aiming to lift hundreds of thousands of children out of poverty. In other news, controversy swirls around Kanye West's headlining Wireless Festival, with the Prime Minister calling it deeply disturbing and sponsors pulling out. Warmer weather is on the way, with temperatures hitting 24 degrees Celsius later this week after Storm Dave. And knife crime initiatives are expanding in at-risk schools. Remember to like and subscribe. See you later, alligators.
Thank you very much indeed. Should we have an update on the poll as well? Sorry. Because we've been asking the question, who should be the newsreader here at the Mike Graham Show? Edward Hughes, 47%. Fiona McLeod, 37%. So it's getting closer. I think it was 48-36 before. Hugh Edwards, 7%. He's coming up on the rails. Generic AI bot, 9%. So at the moment, Edward Hughes is still your favourite newsreader. It's funny, isn't it? Because when we started with Edward Hughes, lots of people said, get rid of him. Now you want to keep him. Shows you the vagaries of public opinion, after all. This is the Mike Graham Show. It is 12 minutes past 8 in the morning. The NHS doctor strike has now been underway for an hour and 10 minutes. You know what's also funny is that BMA workers are also on strike. They're only asking for a lot less than the doctors are asking for, and the BMA is refusing to give it to them in a bizarre twist. But coming up after this, it's Anne Widdecombe.
Now, only two sorts of people oppose free speech, and they are at opposite ends of the scale. Snowflakes and totalitarians. I am offended, upset, insulted at least 30 times a day. Tough. It is not necessary to flash your knickers to do a decent ballroom dance. Free speech is for all, not for the privileged few. Nobody has the right to live their lives being protected from offence or from insult or from hurt feelings. And if you really can't take it, become a hermit.
Time to say a very good morning to Anne Widdecombe. Anne, very good morning to you.
Good morning to you.
Very good to see you. As we speak, the new doctors' strike has been underway for approximately an hour and a quarter. It's said to cost us £3 billion, 50 million a day for the week that they're off. But of course, it's longer than a week because they probably haven't really been there since about last Thursday, and they won't be there until a week today. It seems extraordinary, does it not, that these doctors don't get it, and that, you know, if they want to be doing a job which they trained 7 years for, which they don't like, then I don't understand what their problem is.
No, I mean, first of all, yes, it's quite true that it is costing the nation billions, money that it hasn't got. But even more important than that, it's costing patients care and attention. It's costing the colleagues who are having to fill in and do extra hours because of the strike. It's affecting them. It is a thoroughly selfish action, and I only hope, because this government never stands firm on anything, I only hope that this is the occasion when they do.
Yes, they do. I mean, they do seem to be standing firm on it. But I mean, I was listening to somebody speaking this morning about it on another station, saying that this seems to be, for all of the wrong reasons, a strike that this government cannot stop from happening. And also, even if they were to settle with them this time, there's no guarantee that they wouldn't go out and strike again. They seem determinedly anti-government of any kind.
Well, I mean, if they settled with them this time, then inevitably that would encourage them to try it next time, because they would say, oh, well, it worked last time.
Yeah.
So the crucial thing is that it doesn't work. But what worries me is that you've got these people in the medical profession taking care of very vulnerable people who desperately need their skills, and they're prepared just to up sticks and go out on strike. And that says to me that we are not always getting it right when it comes to whom we recruit into the medical profession.
Yes, I think that's absolutely right. And there's no question, is there? The BMA, the British Medical Association, has now become literally a kind of a far left cabal of characters who do not wish to actually do anything but disrupt the work of government and disrupt the NHS. The NHS is in a terrible state, not least because of people like the BMA.
Well, that is quite true. The NHS is in a terrible state, but the fundamental reason it's in a terrible state is it was never designed to cope with what it's coping with now. You know, if we were starting again and knowing what we know now rather than what they knew in the 1940s, we simply wouldn't have designed it that way. And until somebody faces up to that, the NHS is going to go on being under the most impossible strain, and certainly action like this doesn't help.
Do you think there's just too many people using it?
I think it is being used possibly too widely and without a proper sense of priority.
Yeah.
But if it was properly structured and was adapted for modern day circumstances, that wouldn't matter so much. I mean, what we've got is an institution that's the victim of its own success. I mean, at its very simplest, and I only do this to illustrate a point, before there was hip replacement surgery, there was no queue for hip replacement. And every time there's a medical advance or a surgical advance, this huge tail of demand comes behind it. And Bevan seriously thought, and you can't blame him, it was a different world, but he seriously thought that because we had a health service, we'd all get healthier, which we have. But because we all got healthier, he believed demand would decline, instead of which medical and surgical science has sent it towards infinity.
Yes. And also the large increase in the population hasn't helped either. And also, look at a story in the Mail today in which it says that last year alone, NHS staff took 8 million sick days, right, for depression, mental health issues, anxiety. 8 million days. That's extraordinary, isn't it?
Well, yes, and it's 8 million days in which, patients weren't getting the fullest possible care, or 8 million days in which an awful lot of colleagues had to work to cover the absence.
Yeah.
So it is a serious business. I do understand that there's a lot of stress in the health service, but equally there's an awful lot of stress in other professions, and that is something which you take into account. If you're going to work in the health service, you'll be stressed.
Yeah. And if you don't need to go and work in a health service, you don't have to go and work in a health service. There are plenty of other jobs that you could be doing. We keep hearing all of these campaigners saying, oh, it's really hard, for nurses. They're having to worry about making ends meet. They're having to worry about getting childcare. They're having to worry about this and that and the other. As far as I'm aware, people in the health service are not badly paid, certainly not now. Particularly if they work at weekends, particularly if they do extra shifts, particularly if they get London waiting. Some nurses operate as agency nurses, in which case they make even more money. There's no question that if you are not happy with the amount of money you're making for the NHS, it's not because they're not paying you enough, it's because you want more money.
Well, I mean, that and the very simple fact is that all the stresses that people have pointed to, childcare and all the rest of it, long hours, etc., those are felt in a whole range of jobs.
Sure.
They're not unique to the health service, for heaven's sake. A lot of people are having to face up to those difficulties and problems. And I think we've almost got to the point now where we think we have a right to be protected from the ordinary stresses and worries of life. None of us have got that. Previous generations would never have assumed that. We've got to start facing the fact that life isn't simple, and it isn't going to be a gilded path, except for a very privileged few.
Yeah, and people never mention either the fact that nurses and doctors in the NHS get a very, very good pension, far better than almost anyone else in certainly the private sector, and even in the public sector. You know, they get a 25% contribution, as far as I'm aware, from the NHS, i.e. from taxpayers.
Yeah, they get an excellent pension. And as far as I'm aware, it's not a funded scheme, which means that you're right, it comes from the taxpayer. I'm just going to throw something in here, by the way, and say the MP scheme was funded. So you're right, it's an extra strain on the taxpayer, but it's deserved. They've worked tremendously hard, most of them without the sort of barrage of complaint that we're getting at the moment from others. And they deserve, security in retirement. I don't have a problem with that. I only have a problem with the plea that this is something special and something ultra difficult. And it can be, but it isn't always.
No, indeed. And it's also difficult to be a patient. Nobody actually seems to ever mention that. You know, they've got people who would have waited probably months and possibly a year or more to get an operation this week, which will now not be happening. And they'll be back on another waiting list, and nobody knows perhaps when that operation will be done. And particularly if it's not an emergency, which the NHS is very good at, if it's an elective surgery, which is just something that makes your life easier and you haven't been able to get it done for a couple of years, that's very stressful and detrimental to your own mental health, I would have thought.
Well, it's worth pointing out that these doctors who are on strike are not friends of the poor. Because if your operation is yet again postponed or it's too long to wait in the first place, and you can afford, sometimes even at great sacrifice, but you can nevertheless afford to go private, you do that. And the people who are left with absolutely no choice except to wait and wait and wait are the victims of this strike.
Yeah, totally. And also one other story that popped up this week, I think it was in the Times yesterday, maternity deaths have hit a 20-year high, right? Which I think is something.
What? Sorry,
maternity deaths have reached a 20-year high. Apparently, they've risen to more than 12 women per 100,000 over the past decade. Quite a large number of women, a few hundred women, have died in the last couple of years, sort of in the process of giving birth for one reason or another. Now, I know some of those reasons will be, unfortunately, specific to those individuals, but it suggests a trend that maternity units in this country are not as good as they should be, and we know that from the Lucy Letby case, from the fact that so many maternity units in this country are substandard and are being currently investigated for not being as good as they ought to be. And so I think there's quite a lot of questions about the way the NHS in particular is run.
Yeah, I mean, it is horrendous. We associate death in childbirth with the Victorian age,
yes.
When it was utterly normal. Yeah. And we think we've got past that, and indeed I thought we had got past that. Now, there's always odd reasons, people refuse medical advice to go into hospital until it's too late. They want to have it at home or whatever it might be. There are individual reasons, but when you've actually got a trend like that, then you say, no, this is not just individual reasons, something's happening. And that really, you've got a Secretary of State for Health, ask him what he's doing about it.
Yeah, well, not very much, it would seem to me. He seems to be mostly spending his time hanging on to his job, making sure he doesn't get moved in some kind of reshuffle or other, but he doesn't appear to be in control of the NHS. They keep telling us that waiting lists are down, but they've also had to admit that actually people's names have simply been removed from waiting lists because they wanted to try and sort of jiggle the figures around.
You can always get waiting lists down, Mike. You can do anything with statistics.
Yeah.
Anything at all with statistics.
Yes.
So when a government says, any government, don't care which party it is, says, we've got this down, we've got this up, blah, 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 you need to look well behind the statistics. And sometimes it's the truth, but sometimes it's just fantasy.
Yes, indeed. Let's talk about King Charles. We had Godfrey Bloom on the show yesterday calling for King Charles to abdicate on the grounds that he's no longer representative of the leader of the Church of England, as it were. A lot of people worried that he didn't make an Easter sermon or didn't make an Easter statement. What's your take on that? You're a bit of a royalist.
Yeah, I'm a royalist and I'm a Catholic, and I think very, very sad indeed that he didn't do an Easter message. This is the most solemn time of the Christian Church's year. and it's a time also just to talk to the nation. And he hasn't done that, and I am as disappointed as anybody else. Of course, I'm not going to call upon him to abdicate. I think he's doing a very good job as monarch. But even if he wasn't, you wouldn't want him to abdicate and throw the system into chaos. So I don't agree that he should abdicate. I wouldn't even think of it. But I am disappointed about the Easter message, and I hope he understands the reaction that he's got by not doing it. Now, unless there are very good reasons, health reasons or something else, in which case we should be told that and reassured, I think he should reinstate it next year and keep it reinstated.
Yes, it would be nice, wouldn't it? Because people have said to me, well, you know, Queen Elizabeth II didn't really do that many Easter messages. She only did one. Other people say she did about 4. But she didn't also do loads of other messages for various other different religious festivals. And I think that's the point, isn't it?
That is the whole point. I mean, what isn't done for any is okay, but what is done for only a selected few and not the others, that is when you start to question it. King Charles is the supreme governor of the Church of England. It just goes with the job. It's what he is. And therefore, he has got to be an overtly Christian monarch.
And let me ask you about Kanye West. I don't know if you're a Kanye West fan, otherwise known as Yee. I don't see any of his CDs in the background there, but there's talk of him being banned from entering Britain. Is that something that Britain should be concerned with, or is it simply a bit of overreach from Starmer and his brigade?
It's certainly overreach. I don't think he should be banned at all. He has apologised for what he said. We live in an age now in which nothing is ever forgiven. You know, if you err, that error will be held against you forevermore. And some people can react very, very hysterically. Now, what he did was horribly wrong. We all know that. We also know that he hasn't got the most stable of mental health. And, you know, he's got a vast fan base who want him to come. Let him come.
Yeah.
If he says those sorts of things again, kick him out. But otherwise, let him come.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this guy, Bob Villan, is allowed to go up on the stage at Glastonbury and spout similar things, and nothing happened to him. And I know he's not from a different country, but nevertheless. And as somebody pointed out who runs the Wireless Festival, his music is played quite regularly on radio stations in the UK, so why shouldn't he be allowed to come and perform live?
What's the difference? No, I agree.
Yeah. Okay. Jolly good. Good to see you, and thank you very much indeed. Substack mention for you as well, because that'll be coming up later in the week.
Yes, please. I'm very grateful to everybody who subscribes to my Substack. And all you've got to do is Google Anne Widdecombe Substack, and you'll find it. And you'll find in there the sort of material that I used to write for the Daily Express before it got rid of me.
Ah, did they? That's yet another shocking blunder. Well, that's something we have in common. They got rid of me some years ago. That was a very long time ago, on the grounds that I wasn't a woman, believe it or not.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah,
well,
yeah.
I didn't fail on those grounds. I think I failed because I sued the Mirror for libel, and that of course is a terrible thing to do, apparently. And secondly, I did not join in, and indeed strongly opposed the Daily Express's campaign for support for assisted dying.
Oh yes, very interesting. Well, what a woman of principle. You don't like that at the Daily Express, for heaven's sake. There we are. Good to see you, Anne Widdecombe. Thank you very much indeed. A brilliant woman, as ever. Somebody just put up a message saying they subscribed. Thank you very much indeed for subscribing. Who was it?
Thank you.
Karen. Yes, I have subscribed. Well done, Karen. We're asking for people to like and subscribe to the channel. We've hit 150,000 subscribers overnight, and we will be hoping to push that forward up into 200,000. Shimmy says, what is a Substack? Substack is what can only be described, I suppose, as a network of online activity, which is basically where people write things, where they post videos, where they post their sort of ramblings, their thoughts. I do a Substack, as does Anne Widdecombe, where she writes every week about stuff that's affecting her. Like she used to do a column in the Daily Express, it now comes out as a Substack. We do a similar thing. I've also got a section called Ask Mike, where you get to send in questions and ask what I would say about something. And if you are a paid up member of Substack, you'll be able to watch this show ad-free. by the way, which is also another bonus for contributing to the business of the Mike Graham Show. This is from Judas, a super chat. I'm a physician in the United States. Pardon the criticism, but the thought of striking is abominable. We doctors have a duty above financial concerns. As my attendings say, medicine is not a hobby. Buck up. Hit the like button. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Doctors should not be going on strike. And quite frankly, I don't think they should be allowed to go on strike, like the police. Here's one from PSR. Can Anne read the news? Anne Widdecombe reading the news would be great, wouldn't it? That would be terrific. But we can see another super chat here. This one from Cindy. Mike, I have 3 dogs, 1 lab, a puppy chocolate lab and a terrier, and 4 cats. And they all love you too. They all behave when you're on my telly. Very good. Well, we'll have Pooch's Pooch coming up a bit later on as well. And one from Jane who says, Tom Hardy for Bond, James Bond. Well, some people have mentioned Tom Hardy's name before, but some think he's getting a bit too old, as is Idris Elba, but we don't know. One from Alan who says, great show, particularly with Russell on, and I agree the sentiment this moon mission is a waste of money. Brilliant to hear the amount of views on it. Yeah, well, you know, they've got a bit woke, the old astronauts, haven't they? I'm not too keen. Amelia for Newsreader says, Cookie Boy, that's not bad. No doubt if we did it, though, we'd get asked to go and see His Majesty's Police in Leicestershire, perhaps. Now, coming up, we're going to speak to Steve Baker. Before that, though, I think it's time for my meltdown, isn't it? There's that picture again. Now, my meltdown today is about my own profession, journalism, right? Because journalism, unfortunately for me, is very much in the doldrums right now. And there's a couple of reasons I'm going to explain to you why I think that is. Firstly, though, have a look at what is one of the greatest clips, I think, of any United States president ever in the history of time. It is this one of Donald Trump talking about Iran on the balcony of the White House in the company of the Easter Bunny.
And I don't think it gets much more hostile than Iran. They're capable fighters. They're very tough people. And there are others like that. You don't mind when the enemy is weak, but that enemy is strong. Not so strong like they were about a month ago, I can tell you. In fact, right now, they're not too strong at all, in my opinion, but we're soon going to find out, aren't we?
I mean, that is sort of iconic, really. I mean, they'll be playing that for the rest of time, I think. Decades and decades will go, and they'll go, this was the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, the 47th President of the United States and the 45th President. He's standing there with his wife, to his right, Melania, looking very solemn, talking about possibly annihilating a country in the Middle East, Iran, and to his left, the Easter Bunny. Now, you can hear Pooch laughing in the background. I was saying to him this morning, you know, in the old days, when I used to be a journalist, when I used to be a reporter, particularly when I was in America, I would have had about 5 phone calls by now to say, we need to find out who the Easter Bunny is. We need to find out who's inside it. We need to find out what he does, how he votes, who his parents are, where they live, and you're on it. And you'd be on it literally for a week. You'd find his parents living in some little, you know, town somewhere in Minnesota. You'd fly there, you get in a car, go to their house, knock on the door, you know, no Google, and you'd go, can we talk about your son who's inside, or daughter, who's inside the Easter Bunny, right? But there's none of that now. People don't do it because newspapers seem to have lost their spark. They seem to have lost their ability to kind of be curious. I've said this before, an awful lot of particularly Westminster-based journalists, and I'll speak to Steve Baker about this, are incurious nowadays. They're rather keen on getting invited to the Downing Street parties. They're keen on getting invited onto the Prime Minister's plane. They don't want to rock the boat. They don't want to ask any questions that might make them persona non grata. And similarly, this morning in the Times, right, they've got a piece about the doctors' strikes costing the NHS more than $3 billion in 3 years. Now, they write these words as if they're true. They say this: waiting lists have been falling steadily over the past 2 years, down to 7.2 million from a peak of 7.8 million, and patient satisfaction has increased. Well, that's simply not true. Their own newspaper has reported that waiting lists have been falling steadily because names have been removed from them deliberately. We've seen that hospitals have been given incentives to reduce the waiting list by simply getting rid of people's names, by writing letters to people and saying, do you still need the surgery? By all manner of different means, whether people have died, whether they've gone private. They've just been removing names. They haven't reduced the waiting times at all. It's a complete myth. But the newspapers seem to go along with it. Similarly, when you see people like Laura Kunsberg, who sometimes is a very good interviewer, but other times isn't, they listen to politicians speaking and they don't challenge them. They don't ask them why they've said something that isn't true. So for me today, my meltdown is about the state of journalism in this country, which I think is woeful. I think it should buck up its ideas. I think we need old-fashioned kicking in the door type journalism now, once again, which used to exist. It's all been cowed, of course, by some of the practices that went on, which were not entirely legal in some ways, and certainly not ethical. But that doesn't mean you can't still ask the right questions and actually do your job. I want to know who the Easter Bunny is. Is anyone going to find out? I mean, I would do it, but unfortunately I'm going to be here. So it's not what I do anymore. But if I could commission some journalist to go and find out who's the Easter Bunny, did he vote Democrat in the last election? Is it the same Easter Bunny that scared Joe Biden? Should we have a look at that just for good measure? This was Joe Biden being scared by the Easter Bunny some years ago. Look at his face. He runs off. He can't handle the Easter Bunny. So, this is a great story for me. And it also makes you happy in times of trouble. That's what journalism is meant to be, in my view, I think. Not po-faced, not establishment, completely and utterly, irreverent, and with the ability to go and find anything out that it needs to know. That's what they should be doing, and they're not doing it. So that's my view, my meltdown for the day.
And I don't think it gets much more hostile than Iran. They're capable fighters. They're very tough people. And there are others like that. You don't mind when the enemy is weak, but that enemy is strong. Not so strong like they were about a month ago. I can tell you, in fact, right now they're not too strong at all, in my opinion. But we're soon going to find out, aren't we?
I mean, I don't know. Should we can the news for the moment? Because Steve Baker is here. Oh, somebody's phone's ringing. Steve Baker, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike. Thanks for having me on.
Welcome to the Lair. We had you on last week, I think, but not actually in person.
Well, what a beautiful studio it is.
Isn't it nice?
Yeah,
now, I don't know about you, and I know there will be people out there who say, this is terrible, this is not the way to act in times of war, it's not diplomatic, it's not really the right thing to be doing. But I can't imagine anyone else appearing on the White House balcony like that with a rabbit.
I absolutely cannot imagine anyone else doing it. No, he is a showman. He's a showman at all times. Somebody said to me once, that rare thing, a Republican academic from the US said to me, he's a comedian. You should take him seriously, but not literally. Yeah. So he is a showman, and that's what he's doing. I don't think I would have done it, and I can't imagine any other politician.
But he gets away with it, doesn't he?
Well, he does, yeah. I mean, he's entertaining people. I mean, a lot of politics now is entertainment. Of course, news, as you know, you've got to inform and you've got to entertain, or people will just change channels.
Well, all you do is look at Keir Starmer as somebody who doesn't entertain anybody, and people think he's the worst Prime Minister of all time. He may not be. It may well be that actually he's better than he appears to be, but because he's so dull...
I think he is in the running.
Hopeless.
I mean, he's in the running for the worst Prime Minister ever.
No question.
Certainly the least ideological, I think it's fair to say.
I mean, I can't think of anybody worse than him in terms of his abilities to take people with him. He can't even get his own party to believe in him.
Well, indeed, yeah. Although, gosh, there's a lot to unpack there, though. I mean, I think with journalists and politicians right now, because social media has put so much pressure on them to produce output, good quality output, and because the agenda moves so fast, I think that it's very difficult to hold a political party together now. Yeah. You have to give politicians what they want, which is influence. Yeah. Sounds obvious, doesn't it? But we know what voters want from their politicians. They want politicians who represent them. Yeah. Well, that means influence. And prime ministers and ministers need to actually give MPs the opportunity to influence public policy. Now, that sounds obvious, but very often they don't. Right. And that's
there is a perception as well, because I saw Russell Quirk was in earlier this morning, and he was, we were talking about you, actually, not in a bad way, but he was saying, the problem is that a lot of people, and you'll know this, that when you were kind of the champion of the right of the Conservative Party, there were people talking about you as a possible leader of the party.
Who would have thought that?
I mean, I know, but they were, and you were very much sort of, a character that was held up as a Brexiteer, a right-winger, but then you were kind of sucked into the party machine, if you like, and some people then were disappointed. Well,
so I did get a lot of
that collective responsibility.
But that's the way the system works. Right. So, I'm afraid it's a bit like being a director of a company. Yeah. If you're a government minister, you are required to take the collective view. Yeah. And I know people were disappointed, but I'm afraid that is the way the system works. And I kind of tested to its uttermost limits the capacity of a backbencher to govern the country by rebellions. Yeah. And you just can't do it. It doesn't work. It's not the way it should work. So I decided when I was offered the opportunity to return to government to take the opportunity and try and work my way up. the truth is you can't lead the Conservative Party unless you're seen to be at the top level in the cabinet.
And
now,
presumably you want to influence it as well to an extent. So
you've got to make a choice usually. You can either rebel or you can go up the ladder. Now, having spent so long, I've led the biggest rebellions in history, the most agile rebellions in history because they used WhatsApp and social media. And I really do think people ought to take my word that I tested that to its limits. And I came to the conclusion that I ought to get into government and try and work my way up. Now, before I lost my seat, I would say to members of Parliament, I'm not expecting to lose my seat, but you know I've led up to a third of the Conservative Party in Parliament through crises to degrees of success. And just like you, they would be nodding. And then I'd say, and of course I've led different factions of the Conservative Party in combination, haven't I, through Brexit, COVID, net zero, and they'd nod. And then I'd say my leadership's easy, isn't it? Because I only lead people where they want to go, and they'd nod. And they say, right, so I want your support to be leader of the Conservative Party if in the unlikely event I win my seat. And you know, every MP I spoke to said yes. And thank God I lost my seat, therefore, because if I'd won my seat, I might have had the nightmare that Kemi's had.
Well, I mean, now she's being accused of getting it wrong by Nigel Farage. In fact, I think we've got a clip of Farage, haven't we?
Yeah, we have.
Should we do that one?
Yeah.
Let's do that.
Copycat Kemi has now decided that everything Robert Jenrick says is absolutely brilliant, and she's going to follow all of it. And one quick last point on this, it's quite fun. So Kemi Badenoch went to a North Sea oil rig last week to say, drill, baby, drill. It wasn't an oil rig. It was a decommissioning rig being closed down because of the taxes they put on the North Sea and investment being withdrawn, which I think actually rather perfectly sums the whole thing up.
He's basically saying Kemi Badenoch's a sort of copycat now of reform because she now likes everything Robert Jenrick says, even though she didn't when he was leaving. And he also points out that when she was on an oil rig the other day, it turns out it was a decommissioning rig, it wasn't an oil rig. So she got that wrong. But she can't win, really, can she?
Well, not in his eyes, of course, no. I mean, he's set out to destroy the Conservative Party. Yeah. He's not in the business of doing a deal with the party. He's not in the business of being nice to the Conservative Party. He wishes to destroy and replace it. Many of his voters would like him to succeed. But, you know, the thing about politics in the UK right now, we have got two competing centre-right parties. Different emphasis on identity and nationality versus the economy. Conservatives probably still more concerned about the economy, Reform more concerned about identity and nation. And it's a big problem. We're fishing in the same pool for similar voters who are fed up with us after 14 years where we didn't achieve everything we should have done. And, you know, obviously Nigel's going to put the boot into Kemi. It's to be expected.
Right. So there's no way for you to see any kind of uniting of the right, because there are some people on the right who want to see that. Most Reform voters, I don't think, want to see that at all. I think they'd quite like to see the destruction of the Tories. But where do you think that's going?
Well, you can't do a deal with someone who wishes to destroy you. It's just, you know, of course you can't. If someone, so all the time Nigel's saying he wants to destroy the Tories, there's no point pleading for a pact. But it's choices, isn't it? It was me who reached out to Nigel Farage and Richard Tice in 2019, persuaded them not to blow up the next general election by standing everywhere, and they did. Why? Because it was in the national interest. That
but they now blame Boris Johnson for not sticking to his word, having done that for him, as they say.
Well, indeed, but there's a lot to be said about that. But where did Boris really let them down? It's Northern Ireland. Northern Ireland's proven immensely difficult for a long time. That's, obviously, I can talk about that all day if you like. But in terms of a pact, I mean, Jacob Rees-Mogg's very good on this because he's a great historian. Over the years, pacts have been done to try and serve the national interest. As we get close to the next election, I think Nigel Farage and Richard Tice and others will see that they could easily be held to blame for a rainbow coalition of the left, which of course would be an utter disaster, I think, from our point of view and from your listeners' point of view. And that's the problem. If we have a competing centre-right in seats like, say, Wickham, and you end up with a Labour MP again, or, God forbid, a Green MP, well, what a disaster that would be, because as we can see now, once they're in for 5 years, and they cling on to it, and they do terrible things. And I'm afraid our votes do matter. I mean, it might only be 1 in 75,000, but how we vote really matters, and we're stuck with the consequences. So I really hope as we get to the election, both Nigel Farage and Kemi Badenoch and their parties, because the parties will matter as well, have the good sense to do something sensible, which the voters can be proud of as well.
Do you think anything that happens on May the 7th will have an effect on that decision from either side? Because if, for example, the Tories get wiped out, which a lot of people are predicting, or if Reform don't do as well as they're hoping to do, will that change the dynamic in terms of a kind of a coalition of types?
Yes, it will. Partly because members of Parliament will start panicking about what all this means.
Yeah.
But I would encourage everybody to just, hang on, zoom back and look at turnout, because unless turnout is high, it's not representative. And usually in council elections, about a third of people vote, whereas in a general election, 2/3 of people vote. And I'd love to see everybody going out and voting Conservative in my case. But that's not what happens. But in council elections, usually most people do not vote. So I would say let's not panic or read too much into local election results when so few people vote.
Is that why the Greens are doing better now than you would have otherwise expected them to do? I mean, I don't get it, frankly. I mean, I hear people talking about them, and I hear people saying, but they're refreshing and they're this and they're that. Yeah. Well, they're crazy, aren't they?
Well, they are, yeah. So, I mean, in the sense that I get it, it's because politics hasn't been working for too many people for too long. And if they can't vote Conservative or Reform, they're going to look somewhere else. They're not going to vote, too many people who wanted left-wing ideas can now see the Labour government failing, and in some senses quite spectacularly. Well, what are they going to do? They probably already thought of the Lib Dems and dismissed them. So the Greens are something new. Now, that only works as long as people look at it superficially. If the public understood economics, if the public thought about what their leaders, the Green Party's leaders, actually been saying, then I hope they'd turn away from the Green Party. But, the most powerful thing anyone can do is join the political party of their choice. That multiplies the power of their vote at candidate selections. That's why we get such duffers so often in politics, because people don't go to the candidate selection.
Well, this is the big
problem
that Reform have got, isn't it? Because they're going to have to try and find thousands of candidates for the local elections, which I presume they've now done, or they're still vetting people now. Yeah. But then they've also got to find enough people to stand in every constituency.
It's even more serious and difficult
than that. Every MP's job.
Absolutely, it's even more serious and difficult than that. At the moment, they have, 5 MPs? I've lost track slightly.
I think they've got 8 now, haven't they?
Have they? Well, okay. Yeah. But have they?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, it's single digits.
Well, let's go through it. It's Richard Tice, Nigel Farage, Lee Anderson, Sarah Pochin, Danny Kruger, Robert Jenrick, Suella Braverman.
There we go.
So that's
But
7.
the point is, they can't fill the cabinet. That means that if they will need to have absolutely brand new members of Parliament go straight into the cabinet and govern the country.
Right.
That, I can assure everybody listening, is a very difficult thing to do. Oh yeah, of course, Nadeem Zahawi. The point is, when you become a member of Parliament, you've got a steep learning curve, learning what it's like to actually represent the public, learning what it's actually like to make a speech in the House of Commons, learning what it's like to make an intervention or ask a question of the Prime Minister when all the cameras are on you. It's quite hard.
Yeah.
Then when you become a minister, you've got to learn what it's like to actually answer the questions and stay within the bounds of...
Although Labour managed to do that quite well without answering anything.
Well, they do, because you can just take the line you're given and just learn the lines to take and read them out. What if you've got opinions, though? So I was always very careful not to actually perjure myself.
Yeah.
So, but the point I'm making is...
Actually, sorry to interrupt you, but Steve Reed seems to be the guy they choose a lot of the time, because I assume he doesn't have any principles and he'll just go out and say whatever they want him to say.
Well, that is one of the skills of being a politician, I'm afraid. But again, the public can sort this out by just removing people as the candidate. But this is the thing, unfortunately, with collective responsibility in place, you do have to stay within the bounds of what the government as a whole has agreed, which, as I say, is just like being a director of a company. You can't have a director of a big company go off and shoot their mouth off that they don't like what the company's doing. Nor can you with a minister. So if you want to shoot your mouth off, go on the back benches. So it's a really difficult tension between working out what you think, what the government thinks, what your party thinks, and what your voters think, and trying to find some way to navigate it all that you can be proud of. This is why I'm saying that Reform's problem is even more serious than is generally thought, because they must find people who can go straight into the House of Commons, straight into the cabinet, and immediately deliver profound reform to the state. Because if they can't do that, they'll be seen to fail within 6 months.
Yes, but this is the other problem that I think the public see, and they've seen it over the course of several governments, perhaps all the way back even to Gordon Brown, because Tony Blair was capable of changing the face of Britain, and we're still suffering as a result of that, some of the things that he did. But it seems like, for example, there was a story in the Telegraph today about the state of the benefits department, the work and pensions department, where they paid nearly £1 billion to a bunch of people who are dead. And I think there's a sense that no government in recent times, anyway, has been able to get to grips with civil service reform. Every time they say they're going to do it, going all the way back to Boris's time, and when he was going to rip out the Mandarins and start again. And Dominic Cummings was going to go in there and sweep it through with a new brush. None of it happened.
No, and it's about incentives, and it's about structure, and it's about ministers not being there for long enough. I get very frustrated with people blaming civil servants. I've worked with loads of civil servants. They're overwhelmingly talented people who turn up to work every day to do a good job. That's what people are like. Yeah. They end up being badly led by, I'm afraid, ministers who very often don't know what they want, don't know how to get it, don't know how to treat people, aren't resolute in their objectives. And if a minister's not very interested in their brief, that is a disaster for officials. They will turn up every day and do what the minister tells them. But it's quite helpful if the minister knows what they want.
But is there not the case, though, as well, that there's far too many of them and that the civil service has grown exponentially? I mean, loads more civil servants came in during COVID, and as far as I'm aware, they're all still there.
Well, we did need a load of work, whatever. I mean, I opposed COVID lockdowns and restrictions, but given what policy was, it needed to be carried through. And it has to be said, Brexit did create a lot of work to change the way the law works and the institutions work. But the civil service is now too big. Yeah. But we should be really, really careful to treat people respectfully. This is one of the problems. As soon as the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, rule 1, never criticise, condemn or complain. Well, that would make for poor television.
It would.
But it makes also, if you do start turning up as a minister and all you can do is criticise and condemn officials, it makes for very poor government. People have got.
But if you're also frightened of doing it, that's also bad.
Well, yeah. So this is it. Ministers mustn't go into their offices thinking they're on home turf. They've got to go in thinking, I'm now walking through not enemy territory, but hostile territory. Because if they make a mistake that can be construed as bullying, they should expect to pay the price for it. And just ministers have to recognise just how much power they have. They are seen as like next to God, and they have to treat everyone with absolutely scrupulous good manners, but then be really firm and insistent on what policy they want. And it's a tricky thing to do. Again, reform, they have to find people to go straight into government as not only as members of the cabinet, but as ministers of state and as parliamentary undersecretaries, ministers of all levels, and start performing instantly. That's why Danny Kruger's defection matters so much, because Danny knows what good looks like. He's been in the number 10 as the Prime Minister's political secretary to Boris. He knows what good looks like from ministers and from officials. So Danny has enormous demands on him. He's got to get reform ready to walk into those ministerial offices, make no terrible mistakes, and deliver policy.
By the judgment of most people in this country who vote, they say we didn't see the Conservative government of Boris Johnson, or indeed even possibly of David Cameron, winning over the civil service. However, I mean, I take your point about not being horrible and not being nasty and not calling people names and not throwing people out of offices. But at the same time, you've got to be firm. And if you're running an organisation, the people working for you need to know that they're working for you. And in a way, it doesn't appear anyway that any government recently has been in charge of the civil service.
Absolutely, and there's one thing I would change above all that would absolutely transform the civil service and its relationship with ministers. Make the minister the boss, not the client.
Right.
At the moment, the civil service treats the government, the ministers, as the client.
Because they know if they filibuster around for long enough, the minister will be gone.
That is often
and then
an issue.
The next one will be coming
along. The minute there is a hint that a minister's likely to go, or that the Prime Minister might change, everybody down tools and doesn't want to do anything until they get a new direction. And that's why politics is so sensitive to how ministers relate to one another. I have learned a lot, but when I was listen to me, I've led all those rebellions. But when I was doing rebellions, I did always have an eye to trying to keep the party together, trying to keep government functional. Could have made it a lot worse. But this is why it's really important exactly how members of parliament conduct themselves, even when they're in rebellion. Because you need to create the capacity for ministers to continue to exercise power. But it has to be said, the civil service behaves like a permanent consultancy to the client who is the minister for the time being. That must change. The minister must become the boss.
So if you were going to advise reform then, if they were going to be the next government, I know you wouldn't want to, but how would you do it? So how would you regain control or gain control over all of these mandarins who think that you're just there for a temporary reason, and once they get rid of you, they can go back to normal?
Well, the two things I would do is, first is we've got to, before we do anything else, make it that the minister is the boss. And what that ultimately means is they gain the power to hire and fire and set budgets in the way that the permanent secretary currently does.
Yeah.
The second thing is ministerial competence. You just have to appoint people to ministerial office who understand the housing brief, or they understand the tax system. You have to have people who really just know what they're doing. None of these briefs that ministers have are easy in any department. Even sport has got all sorts of difficulties. All these briefs are hard. They require mental agility, they require toughness, they require good manners, they require really high-skilled, characterful people. And that just doesn't happen too often. Too often you get...
Well, we haven't got any now. I can't think of any head of any department. Everybody used to say John Healey was a sensible man. He was a great guy to have sitting in kind of control of the Defence Department. And now he's a guy who's more or less lost the confidence of his own cabinet, never mind the rest of the people.
Far be it from me to suggest that politicians deserve any sympathy, because they don't. They're all volunteers and they can do something else. But it has to be said, politics chews you up, shows your worst side, your weakest side, whatever, and spits you out. And don't go into politics unless you're willing to rise to that challenge.
Yeah, because it's a very well rewarded challenge, you know. And when you see the amounts of money that go through the coffers of Parliament, where people have offices, where they employ people, you know, I'm not saying any of them are up to no good, but they do have a pretty nice standard of living. And people look at that and go, well, hang on a minute, you know, I'm struggling here, you know. For example, the £3,300 pay rise, 5% pay rise, cost of living increase. They caused the cost of living increase to a large extent.
Indeed.
And now we're paying for it.
Of course, yes, so there's several things in that. One is MPs' pay, pensions and expenses, business costs, are all now determined independently and have been since, I think,
they
2010.
all say that.
But it's true. It's a matter of fact.
Well, it's true, but that's a bit like saying, you know, I've worked out that no matter what I do, it's all Pooch's fault because he told me to do it. But I mean, that's what it sounds like.
Mike, we had such a scandal, didn't we, back in 2010? And I was part of that. I was ashamed to be on the candidates list with the scandal that went on with duck houses and moats and all that crap.
Yeah.
Because part of MPs' remuneration then was to dip their hand in the taxpayer's pocket with allowances.
Yeah.
And that was ended and everything was made independent. Well, you've got a choice then. Either your pay is independently set by someone else, or you vote on it. And you can't have it both ways. So the way I would do it, because the public, 16 years on, the public have never accepted that pay, pensions and expenses are determined independently.
Yeah.
And IPSA are like tyrants to MPs. It's miserable having to answer to them because you know that you make the slightest mistake on anything, you'll be hauled over the coals.
But for most people's reality, you're still able to claim for things that nobody else can.
Well, go on, give me an example.
Well, for example, I can't claim for my heating allowance in my second home.
Yeah, well, I've never had a second home.
I never had a second home. I've got a whole load of them. I mean,
the whole second home thing I can't really comment on because I lived in Wickham and commuted. And
I can't claim for my council tax. You know, which
the thing
MPs
is about
can
a
do.
second home, to be fair to them, MPs need to live in two locations. Now, the way I did it, because I've represented...
Some of them do. They don't all have to. Some of them who live in Essex don't have to. So they can commute like other people that live in Essex.
This is what you're accountable for at the ballot box,
That's
right?
what I'm saying.
Yeah,
What I'm saying is it's a slight... From ordinary people's perspective, people who are listening to this show right now, who are wondering whether they've got enough money to fill up their car with petrol, are going, you guys are doing pretty well, actually.
They are right. They're right. They're right.
Yeah.
The median pay in this country is what, 39, is it now?
Something like that.
And so
MPs are now on 110.
Yeah.
And that's before the allowances.
Yeah. But the issue is that I can see all the comments rolling in.
Yeah.
We have to ask ourselves, what kind of person do you want being an MP? I've shaken hands on a job which would pay me a multiple of what I'd get as an MP. I've shaken hands on several jobs. They all are dependent on investment.
But that puts you in the top 1% of the population in terms of earning.
But the point I'm making, Mike, is when I look at my colleagues who didn't become MPs when I was in the software sector in the city, and I look at what they've earned in the intervening period, it has cost me probably millions of pounds to be an MP. So I sympathise with the public. I'm from a working class background. My dad was a building site carpenter. After the divorce, my stepfather was an open cast mine worker. I know what it's like to live in a family with modest means. I've been there, grew up with it, I understand, I know. But what do you actually want from your MP? Because we've talked about some of the skills you need to govern this nation and turn things round.
Yeah.
You don't want duffers.
You don't, but that's all we've had for quite a long time.
Well, and whose fault is it in a democracy? I'm sorry, guys.
Well, it's all manner of people's faults, but the point is by paying people loads of money doesn't necessarily fix that.
I've made that point myself time and time again, but it absolutely does not. No one goes into Parliament for the money. People will find that hard to believe, but you just don't. It's not the trouble you have to go to be an MP and go through as an MP, which again, people won't like me saying, but I'm not standing for election now to say what I like.
You can.
Being an MP is an appalling experience, and one of the worst things about it is you have to tell people how great it is and what a privilege. It's not, it's awful. And that's why I've been so keen to say thank you to the voters of Wickham for staying at home, because you set me free. It's brilliant not being an MP. I love not being an MP. People just have to get realistic about the calibre of person that they want and what remuneration is enough, just enough to go into it, and how that remuneration's set. If they want to go back to the old days where MPs voted on their own pay, pensions and benefits, we could do that. But honestly, I don't think it would solve the problem. But MPs are not likely to slash their pay to the median.
I think the bottom line is, for people who are watching this and listening to it, is that they will be happy to pay you whatever you want if you do the job. But the problem is that the performance at the moment and for the last several years has not been brilliant. So therefore, a lot of people would say performance-related pay. For example, you don't get a pay rise unless you're doing something good. If the economy's not growing, you don't get a pay rise. If the economy and the inflation rates are going up and people are the cost of living is going up for everybody else, you don't get a pay rise.
I think there's a very, very good case for that. Of course there's a good case for that. We could, IPSA, who determine this independently, could link MPs' pay not to similar roles across the civil service, the judiciary, policing, whatever, but they could instead link MPs' pay to GDP per head.
Yeah.
That's a great idea. Let's do it. Yeah. But at the moment, it's determined by IPSA. So what do people want? Do they want MPs to abolish IPSA and decide for themselves to link their pay to GDP per head? Because that's what it takes. It's a bit boring to have to go through this. It's easy to just moan about it. But what system do we actually want? Now, for my part, I think that IPSA's failed, should be abolished. MPs ought to just vote on their own pay and take the heat. And I think the first thing they should do is link their pay to GDP per head. But I don't think they should materially slash it, because actually, if you look at what people are paid not far from us in the city to do quite serious jobs, MPs are probably paid about the right amount, which people won't like to hear.
They won't.
But who do you want to do this job?
Yeah. Well, like I said, we just want people that can do the job and do it well. I think that's the bottom line. And I think people can agree on that. But lots and lots of you are commenting on all of this, because sometimes you have to hear things you don't like.
And very angrily, I expect. Good on you.
What's that you got there?
Accommodation.
Oh, accommodation. What's that for?
Steve's expenses.
Oh, your expenses?
My expenses.
Oh, there you go. Well, you charge for accommodation.
Well, I needed somewhere to sleep.
You probably did.
But so when you're a minister, so let's talk about that. So I lived in Wickham, and where I wanted to be every night was at home with my wife.
Yes.
When you're a minister, particularly in the Northern Ireland office, you get a ministerial red box, which I can assure your viewers is like another day's work. And I'm not complaining, privileged to do it.
Yeah.
But you do a day's work all day, and then you get a box in the evening, which would be like another day's work.
Yeah.
You cannot do that day's work on the train because it's sensitive.
No.
Some of my work related to national security.
Yeah.
You can't do it on the train.
Yeah.
So that means after a long day's work, including voting at 7 p.m. or 6, 7 or 10 p.m., what you really wanted me to commute home to Wickham, and then having got home to Wickham at like 9 p.m. on a Wednesday, you then wanted me to stay up till the small hours of the morning doing my ministerial box security before then getting back up at 7 to come back in.
That's a specific case as well.
Yeah, but I'm happy to, as you can tell, I'm happy to account to that person who's challenged me. I lodged in London because it was the absolutely cheapest way I could solve the problem of needing to do my ministerial box.
I know, and a lot of times you have to work late, and I get all that. It's, listen, you're never going to win the argument with the viewers who are not happy about it, because they're always going to say...
I'm not trying to win the argument. You can see I'm quite amused. And the reason I'm amused is because I've put up with this for 16 years.
Yeah.
And I would say to the people complaining, I can still see it coming in, get off the keyboard and start engaging your brain. I'm now not looking for your vote, and look at me, I'm enjoying giving it to you. You've got to get off the keyboard and start thinking about who do you want to do the job, how do they come to be there, and how you can be effective in getting someone better. And I'm telling you, I'm not asking your opinion, I'm telling you, the viewer, that the best thing you can do is join the political party of your choice. because it will multiply your power of your vote from 1 in 75,000 to 1 in a few hundred. And that if you just get off your backside and pay 25 quid and join the party of your choice and go to a selection meeting, you can say no to idiot MPs.
Or maybe even run. Maybe even run.
Well, that's what I did, and a lot of people hate me for it, but fair enough.
Yeah, it's the way it goes. It's the way the cookie crumbles. We appreciate you coming in and taking the brickbats anyway, but thank you very much indeed. Steve Baker there, who's much happier now that he's not an MP.
I
am. But he may be even better off not being an MP. But nevertheless, we'll be talking about this because, of course, for the next 2 or 3 years, there's going to be a general election coming, and you're going to have to figure out how we fix the country. That is the way to go. This is the Mike Graham Show. Blimey, it's 4 minutes past 9 already. We better get some news with Fiona MacLeod.
Good morning. I'm Fiona MacLeod. Good morning. A major 6-day strike by resident doctors begins today in England, causing widespread NHS disruption. Patients are urged to use emergency services only for urgent needs and keep non-urgent appointments. On the brighter side, benefits and pensions have risen with the new financial year, and the controversial 2-child benefit cap has ended, boosting support for larger families by an average of £4,100 a year, and aiming to lift hundreds of thousands of children out of poverty. In other news, controversy swirls around Kanye West's headlining Wireless Festival, with the Prime Minister calling it deeply disturbing and sponsors pulling out. Warmer weather is on the way, with temperatures hitting 24 degrees Celsius later this week after Storm Dave. And knife crime initiatives are expanding in at-risk schools. Remember to like and subscribe. See you later, alligators.
I'm Mike Graham, and this is the Mike Graham Show. Please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. It is free, it doesn't cost you any money whatsoever. But if some of you, of course, don't like the adverts, we can always give you a way around that. What you can do is you can sign up for YouTube Premium, which means you'll watch it ad-free, or you can join our Substack, which is themikegrahamshow.com. And for £1 a week, you basically get to watch the show completely ad-free every single morning from 7 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. And it does really, really help us if you like the YouTube channel and if you subscribe to it as well. And that doesn't cost you a penny. So you can do that and push our subscription numbers up. We're already hitting over 5 million views. We've got 126,000 subscribers already, but we want to make that bigger and bigger and bigger because that really does help the channel. The adverts that do appear, of course, on YouTube are put there by YouTube, not by us. There may come a time when we schedule ads so that we know exactly when they're coming in, but do forgive us if you're watching the show and the adverts do come on. But as I say, we really, really want your support. We really, really value it. And if you can join our Substack for £1 a month, that would be great. If you just want to subscribe to the YouTube channel, that would also be great. Have we got any other messages, Pooch, for the good people? What they get on Substack is they'll get a little video from me every day about what I'm up to. Yesterday, I was on a tube train, and I'll tell you all about what happened then. Quite an interesting story. You'll also get little blogs. You might get an occasional recipe from me as well, maybe at least once a week. We're going to try and do that. And all sorts of other goodies that nobody else will see if they're not part of the Substack community. So do sign up to it, themikegrahamshow.com. Do sign up and subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. It doesn't take any time at all. It doesn't cost you anything, but it pushes our numbers up and it really helps the channel. So thank you very much for your support so far. We're looking forward to going into our 5th week very soon. The first month of the Mike Graham Show has been a great success. Thanks to all of you. Thanks to Pooch. Thanks to Charlotte, who puts it all together behind the scenes. And we'll see you every single morning right here, Monday to Friday at 7 a.m. Well, look at that. That was after the first month. And we thought we were doing pretty well then. I mean, 150,000. I think at that point it was about 8 or something, wasn't it? And now it's 14 million. So we're very happy about that. So keep that coming, please. 150,000 subscribers. Do like and subscribe. And please, even if you are not a subscriber now, but you watch it, just do subscribe because it just helps push us into different parts of the internet and into YouTube and gets the algorithms up and all of that. Thank you very much indeed. Many of you still complaining. Here's one from Vivian. I find Fiona's voice very grating. A lot of women are not liking her at all, which is unfortunate. A bit sexist, some might say. Anyway, now, listen, time to go on. 8 minutes past 9 in the morning. We've done lots and lots this morning. We've had lots of great fun talking to lots of different people. A lot of you not very happy with Steve Baker there, talking about how government works and why we should be grateful for the greatness of the MPs who serve us and how they wish they were doing something else. You know, listen, he's got a point of view, perfectly valid one. I'm now joined by Terry Edge, though, who has got a lot of interesting things to say about sofas, first of all. But before that, Terry, very good morning to you. Welcome. You were a civil servant. You did work inside the machine, as it were.
Yes, I did.
What did you make of what some of the things Steve Baker said?
Well, it was interesting. As I just said, in my case, I'll give you an example of staffing in the civil service in Whitehall. I was in a section called the Product Safety Team of the Department for Business. There were about 23 of us.
So that's in the Department for Business. Interesting.
Oh, yeah, very interesting. Why?
Because I would have thought you'd put that in a different department.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. So there was a team of about 23, and I think the work they did could have been done seriously by about 7 or 8 people.
Right.
They then became an agency within the Department for Business, doing exactly the same work, and now they've got something like 400 to 500 people on the books.
And when you say an agency, does that mean it's a privately sort of
no
passed through a system or something?
No,
what does that mean?
It's part of the civil service, it's part of Whitehall.
Right.
I think it's just to try and give it some kind of separate reason to be, but it's still in the Department of Business.
Well, it seems to me that the civil service is about empire building, isn't it? If you, once you get your feet under the table, you need to try and get some more people working for you, and sort of build a kind of corporate tree, if you like, of branches and different sort of feeding frenzies over here, and you need, because I can't imagine any business that wasn't making money going from 27 employees to 450. You just go, I mean, it's a bit like me saying to Pooch, why don't we hire another 30 people and pay them all to do the same job that we're doing? That would be Channel 4, by the way.
Yeah.
I don't know if did you see that picture, Pooch, what I put out of this Kathy Newman's final show? Yes. She's gone off to work for Sky, right? She was the main sort of newsreader on after Jon Snow retired on Channel 4. And it was the final picture of her final show. There's about 38 people in it, and it's a 1-hour show on television. And yes, I know it's a bit more complicated than what we do, but there's 2 of us and somebody in the background, Charlotte, sort of booking guests like yourself. Yeah. And it's just not sustainable in the same way that I don't think the civil service, if it was a private operation, would be sustainable.
No, and I think what's increased considerably in Whitehall is it's really about meetings now. They have meetings about meetings, about future meetings, about past meetings.
Right.
But I was at one big meeting, and the guy was this quite straight-talking Aussie, and he listened to all this stuff. And he said, well, what have we actually done so far? Right. There was this stunned silence.
Yeah.
Like, doing something?
Yes. Well, now, whenever I watch Yes Minister, there's a channel that runs it like almost permanently round the clock. And it's now like a documentary. It's not like a comedy show.
No, absolutely. I mean, modern civil servants like to think, Sir Humphreys, it's not. It's absolutely totally on the ball.
Yeah, and you were saying as well about junior ministers that Steve Baker was describing, who, when they get into these departments, have to be sort of, not too bossy, well-behaved, understanding of the needs and the necessities of the way the civil service operates. But it sounds to me more like the civil service are in charge. And any minister who kind of stands up to them ends up getting the bum's rush.
Yes, well, this happened in my case. We had Jo Swinson.
Yeah. The woman who was going to go home to her constituency and run the country, I seem to remember. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, to give her credit, in the case of furniture, fire safety, which we're talking about, she was concerned about fire safety. So I was giving her briefing on fire safety and the reasons it didn't work.
Right.
But all my senior civil servants said, oh, no, it's fine. Let's carry on as we are. And she got so frustrated, at one point she said, look, I want Terry to write me a paper, no one else, explaining why the current tests don't work and the new ones that we were proposing do work. So I did that, and I got a message back saying she thought it was excellent. Can I answer some more questions? So she sent me the questions, I answered them, and this disappeared. Didn't hear anything back, so I phoned up her office and said, what's happening? And they said, oh, you didn't put it in the right form, so we didn't give it to her. And then just after that, she had this meeting with Matt Hancock, remember him?
I do.
And Oliver Letwin, And apparently after that decided that they better delay on these changes. And they've delayed right up for 12 years.
Yes.
They could have changed things back then. That's the point. That's one of my points
Okay.
today.
And so, so let's talk about why you're here, and that is because the law has now finally been changed on the sort of flame retardant.
Well, it's not been changed. They're consulting on the proposal to change.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah.
So they've for the first time admitted, though, effectively, that the system that they currently have is not right.
Well, yes, the irony is they're actually finally referring to this paper called the Technical Annex, which we put together for the 2014 consultation.
Right.
I say we, it's me and a technical genius called Steve Owen.
Okay.
But it went through umpteen consultations, hundreds of people contributed, and in the process we got a bit of a shock. We found that the current test doesn't work. We wanted a new test which would preserve fire safety, which we thought the current test presented,
right,
but would greatly reduce flame retardant chemicals. But in the process of the testing for this paper that Steve did and also other people did, we realised that the current test just doesn't work. It's never worked.
And so the issue at the moment for you, at least, and for safety campaigners generally, is that the flame retardant product, or products, plural, that was put into the furnishings,
and still is
there, is one, toxic, two, more dangerous when it's on fire, than if it wasn't there, and three is almost unique to this country, and almost no other country in the world does it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only other country that has the same regulations because they copied them is Ireland.
Okay.
And I think the trigger for this change now is that the Irish have announced they're probably going to drop them.
Right.
Because they're part of Europe. Europe's totally against flame retardant chemicals.
Right.
It's also against what they call gold plating safety regulations, which these definitely are. They create a trade barrier.
Right.
So the Irish want to get shot of them. If they do that, the UK is going to be completely isolated in the world in insisting on having furniture regulations that lead to 45 kilograms of toxic flame retardants in every household.
And it's not just the fear that the furniture goes on fire, specifically mattresses and sofas, but it's that the toxicity is actually kind of happening on a daily basis because the chemicals that are used are giving off fumes that you can't see or that you can't detect.
Well, they leach out of sofas and mattresses, which is another irony because even if your sofa was fire resistant when you bought it, within a few months it definitely isn't because a lot of the flame retardants have leached out. They attach themselves to house dust, and that gets into us.
Right.
So, for example, UK mother's breast milk has the highest levels of flame retardants in Europe.
Wow.
Not quite the world because the US has the highest, but the US got rid of their open flame test, which is what we're getting rid of now, a few years back, and they've already seen a massive drop in flame retardants.
And would it be an exaggeration to say that it can cause health problems for people?
Oh, totally, yeah. Cancers, thyroid problems, especially with children, development problems, fertility problems.
Right.
You probably know that, fertility is down by nearly 50%. And it's going down all the time.
Yeah.
Flame retardants play.
What about allergies and things like that as well?
I'm not
really
sure
so much.
Not quite so much. They're not so bad on allergies.
I mean, I was reading a report from you earlier on.
Yeah.
Yesterday actually, and there was some suggestion that pets can also be affected by
totally.
what's going on in the air.
Yes, because pets and children tend to be in closer contact with sofas, mattresses, etc. So yes, there's a campaigner in America called Arlene Bloom who almost single-handedly got the American requirements changed.
Yeah.
And she did that because her cat got cancer and she was convinced it was from what was in her couch.
Right.
And then set off on this campaign, which took her many years, but she did it in the end.
Right.
We've got the same situation here, but it's taken. I'm kind of, in one way, I'm quite pleased, Mike, that they're finally doing it. But the point is, they could have done it 12 years ago.
Yes.
And then particularly could have done it in 2019 when a select committee, the Environmental Audit Committee, did an inquiry based on a report which I wrote for them and my colleague Gareth Sinkins, the environmental journalist, And they concluded that basically my whistleblowing case was right, that these tests are not effective. And it said to the government, change them now, do what the rest of the world does, drop this ignition test, just have a cigarette test, which doesn't require flame retardant, and particularly get children's mattresses out of scope. Because they were horrified to discover that we put flame retardants in children's mattresses, the same that have been banned from sheep dip. And they finally acted on that last year. They just took out child products. Didn't explain why, and didn't have any logic for doing that, which all the more makes me wonder why they're doing this now.
I was going to say, I mean, what was the catalyst for the government suddenly saying, let's not keep it as it is, which is what Matt Hancock did. No surprise that Matt Hancock didn't have much of a care for the general health of the nation. But it also turns out that even if there is a fire, and you have these flame retardant chemicals
makes
in there,
it far worse.
So it doesn't prevent the thing from going on fire. It actually makes it so it doesn't even do what it says on the tin. Effectively, it actually makes the smoke more toxic.
It does. For years, the flame retardant industry claimed that their products gave you 14 minutes escape time from fire, which is nonsense.
Right.
There are videos on YouTube by fire services where they set light to a mock-up bedroom, say, and within 2 minutes, the entire room is a solid wall of flame.
Right.
So the flame retardant industry are now saying 4 minutes. It's not based on anything. It's not true.
Yeah.
So no, it doesn't really. They don't prevent fires. They don't really give you much escape time, and they do make fires much more toxic.
Yeah.
This was behind Grenfell, of course. Sorry, I've lost my thread.
I was going to say, so what is in your view anyway the catalyst that's made this government decide to change it after all these years?
Well, I think the Irish, because they're worried about being isolated, and also growing.
Could it be because of the EU? I mean, perhaps they want to be on side with the EU as well.
Well, that's right, because the Irish do, obviously.
Yeah, but I'm saying that maybe Starmer's government does as well.
I think so, because it's an unjustifiable trade barrier.
Right.
I mean, back in 2014, our lawyers were worried sick when we discovered these tests don't work.
Right.
Because that trade barrier was no longer justified. So they've always been worried about that. And with the Irish go, it leaves them isolated and unable to defend them. Plus, I think just growing resistance. There's been, you've probably seen PFAS, which is another forever chemical. It's been in the news a lot, it's everywhere. Well, flame retardant chemicals are forever chemicals. And the EU has been tightening its resistance to forever chemicals. So that's been growing in the background. Plus also, I think stuff that goes on behind the scenes that no one will know about, like blazing rows at the British Standards Institute over this, where people have said to, I know this guy, I've got a friend there, just recently, they made the point to the government, look, take mattress requirements, right? They're completely pointless because...
I mean, these are the things people have always wondered. Why have you got this ridiculous, sticker or whatever it is on the back of a mattress? Because I remember trying to get rid of some old sofa or something to a charity shop, and they wouldn't take it because it didn't have the bit of paper that's stuck on the bottom of it had come off or something. And because it wasn't there, they're like, "No, we can't take that."
That's true. If it doesn't have the permanent label, you can't prove that it complies with the regulations. Not that it does anyway, but. That's right. Well, today you've got a different problem there, which is at end life of these products. There's this ridiculous split with a mattress you can still throw into landfill, and they often are, or they're recycled into carpet underlays, so poisons are coming back into your house. But sofas, apparently, you now have to dispose of safely, which means you're going to have to pay the council £40 or £50.
To take it away.
But mattresses and sofas are the same in terms of chemicals.
That's mad, isn't it?
It's mad, but it's also...
So you can't turn up at your local tip with a sofa, in other words? But you can with a mattress?
Yes.
Question?
Yeah.
How about this? How can we buy safe furniture here then, says South London Sarah? Is there any kind of manufacturer who at the moment doesn't use these chemicals?
There are a few, but the problem
And how easy is it to find out who they are, though?
It's not that easy, and also you have to know that they really are doing that.
Right.
But there are a few. It tends to be expensive because they have to use naturally flame-resistant materials.
Okay.
But you can do it. But my advice would be wait until this change comes through before you buy a sofa. I mean,
will that not take forever though?
Well, I don't think so, because I think they're actually keen to do it now because they're under pressure. So it might come through in, say, a year.
Right.
I mean, I saw a sofa advertised on TV, 15-year guarantee. You know, so don't pay $4 or $5 grand for a sofa now with a 15-year guarantee, when in a year's time you're going to find out that all new sofas are chemical-free.
Yeah.
Well, should be.
And will they be more expensive as a result of that, perhaps?
Well, they should be cheaper.
Right.
Because to treat a sofa with chemicals costs about £100. So they shouldn't have to pay that now.
Right.
It's not going to be great for UK furniture industry because now retailers can buy from all around the world.
Yeah.
Well, they will be able to. But I don't think customers are too bothered about that.
I don't think they'll care.
No, exactly.
Because I think most people, like me, would have been completely taken by surprise by this story. Because one would assume, as annoying as the whole, signature of the mattress and the sofa is, that has to have this sort of sticker on it. You assume it's there for a reason. You assume that if the flame retardant chemicals are in there, it's because it will stop it going on fire.
Yes.
But it turns out that's not the case.
It's not the
case.
case.
In fact, it's actually worse than that because
so
it's going to poison
years.
you.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what the government's been very keen to hold back full public awareness on.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Another question.
Oh, another question. Is it better to buy an old non-retardant sofa and just invest in smoke alarms?
Well, this is the other absurdity. When these regulations came in, there were only something like 20% smoke alarms around, and everyone smoked at home.
Yeah.
Now you've got something like 96% smoke alarms. No one smokes at home.
Yeah.
And yet we've still got the same chemical requirements, if you like.
Yeah.
So it's second-hand furniture. Yeah, I mean, only because most of the frame times will have worn off. So probably you are better going for a second-hand product.
Okay. Excellent. Well, great to hear all this interesting news.
Just
about
one
all
more
of this.
point. Sorry,
Go on,
Mike,
Terry.
I must make this point. What the government is desperate to prevent getting out is the legacy of these chemicals. I estimate that at the moment there is about 1.8 million tonnes of flame retardants in UK homes, right? Which is what's in the furniture. That would take a long time to disappear. So the government is very keen people don't twig on this, because especially when we know that these regs don't work, could be multiple lawsuits, who knows?
Yeah.
So they've kind of disguised that. And one of the ways they disguise it is they're still refusing to list chemicals on the label for furniture.
Right.
When you think about it, I mean, cosmetics, your sandwich, all lists what's in that product. They didn't want that in the past because they didn't want people seeing, for example, there's a banned chemical called deca-BDE. It's still in about 10 million British sofas. It's highly toxic. Imagine the equivalent with asbestos.
Yeah, right.
So that's why they didn't want it in the past, but they don't want it in the future because people think, well, what's in my old sofa? You know.
Well, I think it's something that nobody would have ever thought of, but now they will, thanks to you.
All right.
Well done. That is Terry Edge there, who's been campaigning for this for quite some time.
16 years.
16 years. Well, it must be a good feeling to know that it's finally moving and finally going
It really
somewhere.
was, but then I started thinking, yes, but.
Yes, but. Well, as ever thus. This is Britain after all. Well, listen, we're very near the end of yet another show, another interesting, fascinating conversation with lots and lots of different people involved. Why don't we play Ricky Gervais? What do you think? As a kind of a message to everybody as far as how a lot of people think.
Oh, sorry.
Hi guys, Ricky G here, wellness and beauty influencer. I've just been meditating, and I got to thinking about all the war and oppression in the world, and I thought, should I actually go to those countries and fight and really make a difference? Then I thought, no, just do this video.
Absolutely brilliant. We've got Pooch's Pooch to do as well, and a final update on the newsreader problem that we've had over the course of the last week or so. I'm not entirely delighted to tell you that in terms of who should be doing the news, Edward Hughes 47%, Fiona McLeod 37%, hasn't really moved. More than 6,000 of you have voted. Hugh Edwards 7%, and the generic AI bots 9%. So Hugh Edwards comes bottom once again. And it looks like Edward Hughes has cemented his place in the annals. But look at this from Richie and Rogue. Edward Hughes is ours now. Well, once you tell him that you can't give him any money, that may make a difference, obviously, Richie and Rogue. So we shall see. It's not over yet because the HR department have yet to deal with him. And it may well be that it will be impossible for him to return anyway. In which case, Fiona MacLeod may have to be the newsreader until we can find somebody else. Well, that's very possible too, yeah. And they may be forging some kind of, unholy alliance, is all I can say. Finally, we should say, at 9:29, we are going to move over, of course, to UK Live, as we always do. I'm not sure if we've got a phone call, have we? We may have a phone call, which we'll take. But shall we do that now then, or do you want to do Pooch's Pooch on the other side? Yeah, we can do that. So what you're going to do is, if you are on the YouTube chat right now, Pooch will put out a little connector, which means if you click on it, you'll end up on UK Live. This is our new channel. We'd like you to subscribe to that as well, please, if you don't mind. We've already got actually 40,000 views, I think, on it, which is not bad. And what we do is we try and switch over to that every 9:30 at the end of the show. And for those people on Substack, some of you have been asking the question, how do we get it? Well, I'm afraid the Substack show stops at 9:30, doesn't it? Oh, it carries on, because some people were telling me yesterday it stops. Okay. Pooch says you're talking a load of old cobblers. In that case, you stay where you are and you'll see the rest of it. But in time, presumably it will stop at 9:30, won't it? Because normally speaking, this will be a new show starting up, which is what we're kind of leading into. So thanks to all of you for watching. Thanks to Pooch. Thanks to Charlotte. Thanks to all my guests. Thanks to Terry Edge for coming in. Steve Baker as well, of course. Russell Quirk, who was here earlier. Andrew Bridgen. We'll be back on this channel at 7 o'clock tomorrow morning, Wednesday.